Chapter 2268. Sigh, why do you have to do this? At this moment, a sigh sounded in the vast darkness. Immediately after, another huge pressure surged into this space tunnel. Everyone from the Qianquan Academy felt their bodies lighten. Just now, the pressure and suffocation instantly disappeared and they regained their freedom. Before they could react, their 5 senses were cut off again. The world spun and they seemed to be continuing to travel through the space tunnel. After more than 10 breaths, a bright light flashed in front of them. Everyone landed on the ground and gradually regained their vision. The surroundings were filled with fresh air and rich heaven and earth essence qi. The vegetation was lush and full of vitality. Jade pavilions and waterfalls flew into the sky. From time to time, there would be cultivators flying in the air elegantly. In a daze, everyone had returned to the Qianquan Academy. We're still alive? It seems like we've returned safely. The scene in front of us shouldn't be an illusion or an illusion, right? When everyone recalled what they had just experienced, they all felt that it was unreal. Su Zimo frowned in deep thought and remained silent. When he ascended, he had experienced an assassination attempt by an immortal king. But that time was different from this time. That time, it was King Yunyu who appeared and didn't hide. But this time, he didn't know who the person who attacked was. He wasn't even sure if the person who attacked was here for him. If this person wasn't targeting him, why would they provoke an immortal king to attack them? If this person was here for him, what was the reason? Zither Immortal Mengyao, Duke Yuanzhua, the Flaming Sun Immortal Kingdom, or the Pang clan, any of the forces had a reason to attack him, but it seemed that none of them were worthy of such a large force. This kind of unknown enemy was the most terrifying. In fact, all these years, even though Su Zimo joined the Qianquan Academy, he still had an inexplicable sense of danger in his heart. Back then, during the Immortal Sex selection, Duke Yuanzhua suddenly came to find him and recognized his identity. This matter was a little strange. It had been a long time since that incident, but Su Zimo's heart was still thinking about it. Was there any connection between that incident and the ambush he experienced this time? Just now, what's going on? Right at this moment, Princess Qi Hong recovered from her shock and couldn't help but ask, why would an immortal king realm expert target us? I'm not sure either. Elder Zhong shook his head and said, celestial kings are almost at the pinnacle of the upper realm. They definitely won't make a move easily, let alone against people like us. The several elders of the Cosmos Academy were also confused. Who was the one who saved us? Lu Ping asked curiously. Elder, he said, if I'm not wrong, it should be Patriarch who stepped in. Qianquan Academy's Patriarch. This person's status on the Divine Cloud continent was definitely not inferior to King Jin, the Flaming Sun Immortal King, and the others. Elder Zhong said, Patriarch's wisdom is unparalleled. He can see through everything. He knows everything. If a celestial king attacked in godly clouds, he would have sensed it. So powerful. Lu Ping bit his tongue and said, then wouldn't the disciples of the academy be able to do whatever they want in the divine clouds continent? Wishful thinking. Elder Zhong shook his head and said with a smile, this time, it was an ambush by a celestial king. The difference between the two sides is too great. That's why Patriarch stepped in. If it was a battle between people of the same cultivation level, Patriarch wouldn't care. Victory, defeat, life, and death are all predestined by karma. Patriarch definitely wouldn't forcefully interfere. I see. Lu Ping was slightly disappointed. All right. Elder Zhong smiled and said, no matter what, we've survived a great disaster. Go back and rest first. Su Zimo, Qi Hong, Lu Ping, the 3 of you go back and prepare. In about 3 days, the Grand Elder will summon you to join the inner sect. Everyone agreed and went their separate ways. Su Zimo, follow me. Elder Zhong continued, this time, you've obtained the first place on the Earth ranking. You can freely browse and cultivate your cultivation techniques and secret techniques in the Earth rank secret pavilion of the sect. Apart from not being allowed to take away the cultivation techniques and secret techniques in the secret pavilion, you are not restricted in any way. Su Zimo's eyes lit up. A large part of the reason why he spent so much effort to obtain the first place on the Earth ranking was because of this reward. In fact, although this reward was precious for the disciples of the Academy, it was nothing much. After all, it was an Earth-rank secret pavilion, and the cultivation techniques and secret techniques inside were not considered top-notch. Furthermore, for a heaven-level celestial sect like Qiankuan Academy, the cultivation techniques and secret techniques in the secret pavilion were as vast as the sea. A person's time and energy were limited, and it was impossible for them to cultivate too many. For ordinary cultivators, it was enough to choose a few cultivation techniques and secret techniques that were suitable for them in the secret pavilion. However, Su Zimo's plan was to digest and absorb all the cultivation techniques and secret techniques in the Earth-rank secret pavilion of Qiankuan Academy. Naturally, Qinglian's true body could not do that. However, Wu Dao's true body could. Wu Dao's true body had the Wu Dao cauldron and did not need to cultivate at all. He merely had to refine all the sutras in the secret pavilion and extract the profoundness within. Wu Dao's true body was still in seclusion to deduce the next cultivation dermic formulations of Wu Dao. At that moment, he needed to read a large number of cultivation techniques. Back then, the reason why Su Zimo was able to create the Wu Dao's 9 transformations in Tianhuang mainland was because he had once cultivated the immortal, Buddhist, fiend and demon Daos and obtained the legacies of many mighty figures. That was why he took a different path and created the Wu Dao. Right now, if he wanted to continue deducing Wu Dao's dermic formulations, his true body had to refine cultivation techniques and secret skills continuously to seek experience and inspiration from them. The cultivation techniques in the secret pavilion might not be of high quality. However, every single cultivation technique that was created and passed down contained the boundless wisdom of the ancestors. Furthermore, they were cultivation techniques and secret skills collected by Qiankuan Academy. Before long, Su Zimo followed Elder Zhong and arrived before the Earth-level secret pavilion of Qiankuan Academy. There was a white-haired old man guarding the secret pavilion. He leaned casually against the door with a broom in his arms and rested with his eyes closed. There was no one else around. Even when Su Zimo and Elder Zhong arrived before him, the old man did not open his eyes. Su Zimo could not tell the cultivation of the old man. However, he could sense that the old man did not seem to have much lifespan left and was at the end of his life. When Elder Zhong saw the old man, he bowed respectfully and said, "Old Xian, this is Su Zimo. He is the top of the Earth ranking this time round." "Oh." The old man suddenly opened his eyes and a strange glint flashed through his murky eyes. He sized up Su Zimo for a long time before nodding. "Not bad, not bad. The younger generation will surpass us in time." The old man's tone was calm as he praised. "Go on in." The old man shifted his body slightly and closed his eyes to rest again. "Go on in." Elder Zhong patted Su Zimo on the shoulder and said, "If the Grand Elder summons you, I'll inform you. You can read as much as you want for the next 3 days. Chapter 2269. Su Zimo cupped his hands towards the old man at the side of the secret pavilion. After bowing, he pushed open the door and entered. An ancient smell of books wafted out. After Su Zimo entered the secret pavilion, the door behind him closed on its own. The light within the secret pavilion was dim, but Su Zimo had cultivated to this boundary and his eyesight was extremely strong. He was able to look around without any hindrance. Within the secret pavilion, there were rows of neatly arranged bookshelves. They were roughly divided into cultivation methods, secret techniques, immortal techniques, pills, array formations, refining. On each bookshelf, there were all sorts of cultivation methods. Some were in the form of ancient scrolls, some were in the form of bamboo slips, some were beast skins, some were jade slips. Su Zimo first came to the cultivation method section. He casually picked up an ancient scroll and glanced through it. Heavenly Mandate Dark Spirit Technique. The contents of this cultivation method weren't too complex. Su Zimo only skimmed through it once and understood most of it. Su Zimo silently memorized this cultivation method and then told the contents to Wu Dao's true body in the distant demon region. Qinglian's true body had no need to cultivate these cultivation methods. To be more accurate, The cultivation methods in the Earth-level secret pavilion weren't worth his time and energy to cultivate. Any cultivation method here was far inferior to the Taboo Nirvana Sutra. Perhaps on the other bookshelves, he could find some secret techniques that would be helpful to him. For instance, in the 9-layered heavens, Su Zimo was prepared to try cultivating the life-snapping self-sacrifice art that Yi Fei had released. Soon, the contents of the Destiny Dark Spirit art were all told to Wu Dao's true body. Su Zimo continued to read. White Feather Spirit Scroll. Clear Mirror Art. Heaven Inquiring Atlas. Demon Vanquishing Manuscript. Divine Dream Mystic Scripture. Qinglian's true body memorized each cultivation method and then told them to Wu Dao's true body. Unknowingly, a day passed. Su Zimo had just browsed through over 100 cultivation methods, less than a 10,000th of what was in the secret pavilion. Su Zimo gently rubbed his glabella to soothe his mind. With enough time, he could slowly transfer all the cultivation techniques in the secret pavilion to Wu Dao's true body. This matter could not be rushed. Su Zimo picked up a piece of old white paper. Swordsmanship Manual. There were 2 large words written at the top of the white paper. However, the edges of the white paper were damaged. It was obvious that it had been forcefully torn apart. It was incomplete and was only the size of a palm. There seemed to be something else before the 2-word Sword Codex. However, this piece of white paper was torn beyond recognition, and only half of the scripture was written on it. Su Zimo could not understand it at all. Su Zimo didn't think too much about it. He still wanted to memorize the incomplete sword manual and pass it to Wu Dao. But a strange thing happened. After Su Zimo recited it once, when he wanted to pass the words of the swordsmanship manual to Wu Dao's true body, he suddenly realized that he could not remember a single word of the sword manual that he was reciting just now. His mind was completely blank. There was nothing. Su Zimo frowned slightly. His gaze swept past the swordsmanship manual. Just now, the few words of the sword manual that he was reciting appeared in his mind once more. When he wanted to pass those words to Wu Dao's true body, they disappeared once more. There was nothing for Wu Dao's true body. Strange. Su Zimo had a confused expression. This time round, he recited the few paragraphs of the swordsmanship manual repeatedly to make sure that he remembered them clearly. However, he did not pass them to Wu Dao's true body. Instead, he closed his eyes and recited them repeatedly to strengthen his memory. However, before long, the few sentences that he recited disappeared from his mind once more. Su Zimo looked at the palm-sized piece of ancient white paper in his hand. With a thought, he exerted a little force with both hands and tore it to both sides. As expected, this old piece of white paper was in perfect condition. Su Zimo took a deep breath and exerted force. Apart from not using his blood qi, he unleashed almost all the power of the 11th grade Qinglian's true body. Even an ordinary heaven-grade Dharma treasure would not be able to withstand such great power. However, this ancient white paper remained motionless without any signs of damage. This was a treasure. What was the origin of the scriptures recorded in such a treasure? Why couldn't these scriptures be recited? At this moment, Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat. He first put down the ancient white paper in his hand. Instead, he chose to pass the contents of the Prajna Nirvana Sutra to Wu Dao's true body. The Prajna Nirvana Sutra was a taboo mystic manual. Its help to Wu Dao's true body was self-evident. Most of the first half of the scriptures were smoothly transmitted to Wu Dao's true body. However, when it came to the last part, Qinglian's true body could not transmit the scriptures over. The situation that she encountered was extremely similar to what she was experiencing just now. And the scriptures at the back were the scriptures on the 4th wall of the health-suppressing cauldron. The 4th wall of the cauldron had just been repaired. Although Su Zimo had already memorized the scriptures on it by heart, he had not completely cultivated and comprehended it. In other words, if one did not completely comprehend the scriptures on the Taboo Mystic Manual, even if they recited it completely, they could not pass it to a second person. Furthermore, Su Zimo could clearly feel that although he had passed most of the scriptures of the Prajna Nirvana Sutra to Wu Dao's true body, there were still many important things missing. Those were the Dao runes and intents carved on the health-suppressing cauldron. Although Qinglian's true body could pass the scriptures to Wu Dao's true body, she could not pass on the Dao runes and intents on the health-suppressing cauldron. That was something left behind by the Empyrean Emperor. Those were the most precious inheritances of the taboo mystic manuals. At the same time, Su Zimo finally understood something. The stronger a cultivation technique was, the harder it was to cultivate and pass it down. That was especially the case for taboo mystic manuals. One could only cultivate the original copy of a taboo mystic manual by personally viewing it. Furthermore, even if the first person succeeded in cultivating it, the taboo mystic manual could not be passed down if the original copy was not passed down to someone else. The heaven and earth slaying sword arts that Su Zimo obtained had the same characteristic as well. Back in the ancient era of Tianhuang mainland, someone obtained those two sword arts and cultivated them successfully. However, they were not passed down. The Sword Emperor created another Sword Dao cultivation technique through one of the sword arts and was able to pass it down. In that case, there was a high chance that the Sword Sutra on the incomplete ancient white paper came from a taboo mystic manual or some extremely top-tier cultivation technique or secret skill. Su Zimo pondered for a moment and a thought flashed through his mind. Looking at the ancient white paper in his hands, he circulated a cultivation technique together with Wu Dao's true body who was far away in the Fiend region. In a daze, the two true bodies suddenly established a mysterious connection. Their minds were connected and their senses were even clearer and sharper than before. All of a sudden, in the Earth-level secret chamber of Qiankuan Academy, Su Zimo's clear eyes transformed and two balls of strange purple flames appeared. Spirit potency art, see what I see. At that moment, Wu Dao's true body traversed through endless space through the spirit potency art and saw everything that was happening in the Earth-level secret chamber of Qiankuan Academy through the eyes of Qinglian's true body. End of chapter. Chapter 2270. Two balls of purple flames burned in Su Zimo's eyes. The flames spun and landed on the ancient white paper in his hands. The words on the ancient white paper seemed to burn under the gaze of the purple eyes. Even the Dao runes and intents on the ancient white paper were integrated into Wu Dao's furnace by Wu Dao's true body through the eyes of Qinglian's true body and were refined continuously. It was impossible to cultivate this incomplete sword mantra. On the other hand, the martial Dao true body was not cultivating it. It was just integrating the Taoist rhyme and intent realm of this incomplete cultivation technique, as well as the endless mysteries contained in the scripture, into the martial Dao great furnace for further deduction. After another day, Wu Dao's true body finally integrated the sutra, Dao runes and intents of the incomplete sword manual into Wu Dao's furnace. There were only a few hundred words on the sword manual. However, Wu Dao's true body spent an entire day on it. It was clear how precious the sword manual was. Unfortunately, there were too many missing parts of the sword manual. The remaining few hundred words could not be connected at all. Even the martial Dao primordial body could not rely on this incomplete sword mantra to cultivate anything. Su Zimo heaved a sigh of relief and rested for a moment before continuing to browse through the remaining cultivation techniques and secret skills in the secret pavilion. This time round, through the spirit potency art, it was equivalent to Wu Dao's true body reading through the cultivation techniques in the secret pavilion. He directly integrated the contents of the cultivation techniques into Wu Dao's furnace and the speed was much faster. Unknowingly, another day passed. In this day, Wu Dao's true body refined thousands of cultivation techniques in the secret pavilion. It would take less than a year for him to integrate all the cultivation techniques in the secret pavilion into Wu Dao's furnace. Right then, a voice suddenly sounded in Su Zimo's ears. 3 days had passed and today was the day Su Zimo, Infanta Qi Hong and Lu Ping entered the inner sect. Under Elder Zhong's lead, the three of them entered the inner court. The so-called inner court was actually a boundlessly vast paradise of immortals. There was a clear barrier between the external aid of the inner yard. After entering the domain of the inner yard, one could clearly feel that the heaven and earth had become denser. The scenery in the inner courtyard was even more stunning than the outer courtyard. If the outer court was no longer like the mortal world, then the inner court was like a paradise. The number of Cosmos Academy's outer disciples was maintained at several tens of thousands. However, the number of inner sect disciples was more than 100,000. This was because the Earth Immortals who could enter the Chinquan Academy had to go through the Immortal Sect's selection. Almost all of them were geniuses of the Earth Origin realm. Normally, they could break through to the Sky Origin realm and become Sky Immortals. However, every outer court disciple needed a different amount of time to break through to the Heavenly Immortal realm. For example, Su Zimo, Princess Chi Hong, and Lu Ping had broken through to the Heavenly Immortal realm in just 1,000 years after joining the Cosmos Academy. This speed was rather terrifying. As for inner sect disciples, if they wanted to become true disciples, they had to step into the true self realm. It was relatively easy for a Tier 9 Earth Immortal to break through to a Heavenly Immortal. However, if a Sky Immortal wanted to break through to become a Perfected Immortal, it was as difficult as ascending to the heavens. Therefore, the number of inner sect disciples in the Chinquan Academy was actually more than the outer sect disciples. This also meant that the competition between fellow disciples was even more intense. Elder Zhong brought Su Zimo and the other two to the inner sect to meet the Grand Elder of the Academy. The Grand Elder of the Academy praised the three of them for their performance at the 10,000-year meeting and gave them each a sect badge. This was the badge of an inner sect disciple. Only by carrying this badge with them could they enter the inner courtyard freely. Under normal circumstances, there were still some tests to enter the inner sect. However, Su Zimo and the other two had made a name for themselves at the 10,000-year meeting and made the Chinquan Academy proud. This time, the Grand Elder made an exception and directly accepted the three of them into the inner sect as official inner sect disciples. The process of entering the inner sect became extremely simple. In between, there was no ceremony to acknowledge him as a master. Su Zimo was a little curious and could not help but ask, "Elder Zhong, after entering the Chinquan Academy, it seems like there's no need to take any expert as a disciple and we just have to cultivate on our own?" Elder Zhong smiled. "Cultivating in the outer sect and inner sect is all up to you guys. There won't be a master to impart Tao and guide you guys. Of course, outer sect and inner sect disciples won't be able to come into contact with the true core Tao techniques of the Chinquan Academy either. Only by becoming a core disciple will you have the chance to take on a master and learn the best and top-notch Tao techniques of the Academy." Su Zimo nodded. Elder Zhong smiled. "However, you guys don't have to be disappointed. It's not like there's no one to guide you in your cultivation in the inner sect. Follow me," Elder Zhong said and headed towards the east of the inner sect. Su Zimo and the other two hurriedly flew into the air and followed. After about a quarter of an hour, Elder Zhong's speed gradually slowed down. Su Zimo looked over and saw a group of cultivators standing not far ahead. Their auras were strong and they were all heaven immortals. Inner sect disciples. As far as the eye could see, there were at least tens of thousands of people densely packed together, forming a dense mass of black. Why are there so many inner sect disciples gathered here? Lu Ping was shocked and was secretly speechless. In the middle of the black crowd, a blank area appeared with a gigantic circular platform erected in the middle. From afar, it looked like a praying mat. A figure sat on the praying mat with an extraordinary aura. Every single move he made exuded a powerful aura with a rumbling might. The figure seemed to be saying something, and the people below were all listening attentively. They were all extremely serious. "The inner sect platform is up ahead." Elder Zhong pointed to the gigantic praying mat in the distance and said, "Every year, a core disciple will come to the inner sect to impart the Tao and clear up doubts. That's the greatest opportunity for inner sect disciples." Core disciples have already come into contact with the best cultivation techniques of Heaven and Earth Academy. Their cultivation realm far surpasses Heaven Immortals. Usually, a single sentence from a core disciple is equivalent to 10 years of hard work. It can enlighten people and enlighten them. Princess Chi Hong and Lu Ping's eyes revealed a trace of yearning and admiration. Every core disciple was a perfected immortal, and perfected immortals were too far away from them. In the divine firmament immortal realm, There were many heaven immortal experts in the 4 major immortal sects and 3 major immortal kingdoms. However, there were very few who could become perfected immortals in the end. A perfected immortal expert had a lifespan of 500,000 years. After so many years of accumulation, Heaven and Earth Academy only had a few hundred core disciples. It could be said that every core disciple was a mainstay and core strength in the 4 major immortal sects and 3 major immortal kingdoms. In the divine firmament continent and even the entire heaven realm, they would be respected. A perfected immortal expert had a lifespan of 500,000 years. After so many years of accumulation, Heaven and Earth Academy only had a few hundred core disciples. It could be said that every core disciple was a mainstay and core strength in the 4 major immortal sects and 3 major immortal kingdoms. They would be respected in the divine firmament continent and even the entire heaven realm. Chapter 2271. Just as they were about to approach the Tao field, Elder Zhong suddenly paused and descended slowly from midair. He waved his hand and gestured for Su Zimo and the other 2 to descend from midair as well. Those who come to the Tao field to listen cannot stand in midair. Everyone has to stand on the ground to show respect to the perfected immortal. Elder Zhong explained. The 4 of them did not make much of a move. However, at the front of the Tao field, a Tier 9 heavenly immortal expert seemed to have sensed something and turned his head slowly. When he caught sight of Su Zimo and the others, his eyes flashed coldly. At the same time, Su Zimo frowned slightly as he sensed a wave of hostility from the crowd at the front of the Tao field that vanished in the blink of an eye. At that moment, Su Zimo had already descended to the ground. There was a sea of people in front of him and he could not see the source of the hostility at all. At the front of the Tao field. Qingyun, what's wrong? The number 1 fairy of the inner sect, Yan Bingying, sensed the strange expression of the man beside her and asked softly out of curiosity. The man beside Yan Bingying was the number 1 of the inner sect, Fang Qingyun. I saw an acquaintance. Fang Qingyun said indifferently with a calm expression. Who is it? Tang Peng asked from the side. Su Zimo. Fang Qingyun said. It's him. Tang Peng's expression turned cold as a trace of resentment and killing intent flashed through his eyes. Before the 10,000-year meeting, the 3 of them wanted to teach Yang Ruoxu a lesson in order to curry favor with the Moonlight Sword Immortal. The cause was Su Zimo. Furthermore, Su Zimo and Yang Ruoxu were both from the lower world and Yang Ruoxu took good care of him. Back then, Fang Qingyun and the other 2 suffered a loss as well. Not only did they fail to teach Yang Ruoxu a lesson, they even caused Pang Yu's death. Qingyun, I heard that Su Zimo also knows a mystical ability to reduce one's lifespan. Do you think that the battle back then? Yan Bingying had a confused expression and hesitated to speak. Fang Qingyun said, the cultivators of the Pang clan also sent me a message to inquire about this matter. They came to the same conclusion. Back then, that lad was only a Tier 8 Earth Immortal. Could he have killed Pang Yu, a Tier 9 Heavenly Immortal? Tang Peng frowned deeply, still in disbelief. Fang Qingyun said, no matter what, that incident was caused by this Su Zimo. This kid has a good relationship with Yang Ruoxu, so he still needs to be taught a lesson. Senior brother Fang, what do you think we should do? Killing intent flashed in Tang Peng's eyes. He secretly made a beheading gesture and sent a message with his soul consciousness. Do you want me to find a chance to, Junior brother Tang, don't be reckless? Yan Bingying frowned and said, I heard that Su Zimo was in the limelight at the Millennium meeting and won glory for the Academy. That's right. Just teach him a lesson. Fang Qingyun smiled lightly and said, so long as he understands one thing clearly, exactly who has the final say in the inner court. If he's smart enough to stand on our side, we can give him a chance. After all, he is the first on the Earth leaderboard. He can be considered a talent. It would be a pity to just cripple him. Qingyun, do you have a way? Yan Bingying sent a voice transmission. Su Zimo's current status is not the same as before. He was only an outer court disciple before. Now that he has joined the inner court, although his cultivation realm is far inferior to ours, he is still the first on the Earth leaderboard. We don't have to do it. Fong Qingyun smiled faintly and looked at the high and mighty figure who was preaching and teaching on the praying mat platform not far away. Senior Brother Yuchan? Yan Bingying's eyes lit up and said, "That's right. Senior Brother Yuchan is a true disciple." With his status, even if Su Zimo is the first on the Earth leaderboard, he is nothing in front of Senior Brother Yuchan. But how can we get Senior Brother Yuchan to teach Su Zimo a lesson? Tang Ping asked. Fong Qingyun said, Senior Brother Yuchan followed Senior Brother Yuehua in the inheritance ground. Everyone in the academy knows that Senior Brother Yuehua dislikes Yang Ruoxu. All I have to do is tell Senior Brother Yuchan about the relationship between Su Zimo and Yang Ruoxu, as well as what happened in the outer sect previously. He'll naturally step forth to teach Su Zimo a lesson. There are 5 kinds of qi in the spirit. The spirit is the strongest, the heart is the most willing, and the attainment is the greatest. The place to nourish the spirit is the Tao. The 9 poverty and 12 sacrifice are the gates of qi, and the heart is the total absorption. Life is bestowed upon the heavens. The 3 elements return to one, returning to simplicity, discarding the false and retaining the true. That is the true one. True immortals are one with the heavens. Although Su Zimo and the others were standing outside the crowd, they could still hear the voice of the true immortal Yuchan from the praying platform in front of the Tao Hall. It was gentle and clear. Every word of the true immortal Yuchan was like a gem filled with mysteries that left a lasting aftertaste. Su Zimo scanned his surroundings, still thinking about the fleeting hostility he felt just now, and was a little distracted. Elder Zhong, the disciples of the academy here don't seem to have low cultivation realms. Su Zimo took a rough look. Most of the heaven immortals around the Tao Hall were above rank 5. There were almost none of them who were rank 1 heaven immortals like Su Zimo, Infanta Qi Hong, and Lu Ping. Of course. Elder Zhong smiled. When true immortal disciples impart the Tao, they would usually impart the Tao techniques between heaven immortals and true immortals, how to break through and what insights they have during the breakthrough. Therefore, it's the most helpful for high-level heaven immortals. Su Zimo nodded. Right then, for some reason, the true immortal Yuchan's voice paused for a moment. On the praying platform, after a moment of silence, the true immortal Yuchan continued imparting the Tao as usual. This short pause didn't elicit any reaction from the crowd. However, Su Zimo realized that the true immortal Yuchan's gaze had drifted in their direction after the pause. This was the first time Infanta Qi Hong and Lu Ping had entered the inner sect. They were excited to be able to catch a legacy disciple imparting the Tao to them. It's such a rare opportunity for legacy disciples to impart the Tao. There are more than 100,000 inner sect disciples. Why are only half of them here? Infanta Qi Hong asked softly. Elder Zhong explained, there are some inner sect disciples who might be out traveling to complete some sect missions. There are also some inner sect disciples who are cultivating in seclusion. Naturally, they won't come out of seclusion rashly. Of course, the Tao techniques imparted by each legacy disciple are different. It'll definitely be beneficial for us to listen to them. Not bad, not bad. Lu Ping nodded hurriedly and said excitedly, just now, Senior Brother Yuchan's words are truly mysterious. I've been pondering over them repeatedly and have new insights. Noisy! At that instant, a ferocious roar could be heard on the dojo, like rolling thunder. Initially, the thunderous roar sounded above the Tao field. However, instantly, it descended upon the ears of Su Zimo and the others and exploded. Elder Zhong's expression changed slightly. He was a grade 9 heavenly immortal and could withstand the impact of the voice. However, the Infanta Qi Hong and Lu Ping were only grade 1 heavenly immortals. Their bodies swayed slightly and their ears buzzed. In fact, there was even a trace of blood seeping out of their ears. That voice alone was enough to injure the 2 of them. Su Zimo managed to withstand it with his grade 11 Qinglian true body. However, he felt uncomfortable and frowned. Chapter 2272. Su Zimo narrowed his gaze and looked over. On a tall praying mat platform in the distance, perfected immortal Yuchan was glaring at the 4 of them with a stern expression with a fiery gaze. Bush. At the same time, countless gazes looked over at them from the Dao Plaza. These gazes contained a bit of anger, a bit of surprise, a bit of disdain, and a bit of excitement. Instantly, Su Zimo and the other three felt an unimaginable pressure. The attention of the tens of thousands of heaven immortals of the inner sect of Qianquan Academy was focused on the four of them at the same time. The pressure was unimaginable. Even Elder Zhong felt a little uncomfortable. His face was red, and he was a little embarrassed. Infanta Qi Hong and Lu Ping had just joined the inner sect and were only rank 1 heaven immortals. As such, they felt suffocated. Su Zimo's expression was unchanged. He had experienced even more severe and dangerous situations before. As such, the pressure naturally did not affect him much. Senior brother Yu Chan, Elder Zhong bowed hurriedly with an apologetic expression. The three of them are Su Zimo, Infanta Qi Hong and Lu Ping. They have contributed greatly to the academy in this 10,000-year meeting. The three of them have just joined the inner sect and do not know the rules of the inner sect. If they have offended you, please calm down and forgive them. Senior brother Yu Chan, Elder Zhong explained the origins of Su Zimo and the other two before apologizing and making amends. He was extremely considerate and courteous. Perfected Immortal Yu Chan's expression was still cold as he asked, "So, the reason why you don't know the rules and etiquette is because you have contributed greatly to the 10,000-year meeting." This, Elder Zhong was speechless for a moment. That was not what he meant at all. To think that Perfected Immortal Yu Chan would not let this matter go. I'm here to impart my teachings and welcome all of you, junior brothers. However, the few of you are too brazen and don't know how to restrain yourselves. Perfected Immortal Yu Chan's tone turned colder. You think you can be brazen just because you have contributed greatly to the 10,000-year meeting? This is the inner sect, not the outer sect. A Tier 6 heavenly immortal sneered. So you're the first on the Earth rankings. No wonder you're so arrogant. Another voice rang out from the crowd. Su Zimo found the voice familiar, but the crowd was too noisy for him to recall who it was. So what if you're the first on the Earth rankings? Even if he joined the inner court, he would only be a first-tier heavenly immortal, and would be the junior brother of everyone in the inner court. That's right. Even the top of the Earth leaderboard has to respectfully greet us and respectfully address us as senior brother. The crowd clamored. Given true Immortal Yu Chan's status in Qianquan Academy, many inner disciples would naturally choose to stand on his side. Even if there were some heavenly immortals who felt that this matter was making a fuss out of nothing, they chose to remain silent. Under the lead of Fang Qingyun and the others, many cultivators began to denounce Su Zimo and the other two, loudly criticizing them. So sorry. Lu Ping's face was flushed red and blood was still flowing from his ears. He looked guilty and kept bowing and apologizing. He was so anxious that he was sweating profusely. Princess Qi Hong was ashamed as well. She lowered her head and wished for nothing more than to find a hole to hide in. Elder Zhong was still all right. After all, he had cultivated in the inner sect for many years and many inner sect disciples were familiar with him. As such, they did not criticize him too much. However, Su Zimo and the other two had just joined the inner sect and the current situation was almost universally criticized. Su Zimo frowned slightly and felt frustrated. He had a nagging feeling that something was amiss. Indeed, the four of them were conversing below. However, their voices were not loud and could not be considered as loud, nor were they chattering incessantly. The Dao Hall was extremely spacious and could accommodate tens of thousands of people. They were seated at the back of the Dao Hall and unless one listened carefully, no one would notice the four of them. Furthermore, the four of them were not the only ones conversing in the Dao Hall. Many cultivators were discussing softly and exchanging their insights. If this senior brother Yu Chan suddenly flew into a rage because of a few words from them, wouldn't his reaction be a little too much? However, Su Zimo had just joined the inner sect and did not know anything about it. He did not know the rules of the Dao Hall either. There was no way he could stand out and clash with a perfected immortal and legacy disciple of the academy just because of his intuition. Perfected Immortal Yu Chan said slowly, People like you who have no respect for the senior brothers of the academy and those who preach the Tao are not welcomed in the Tao Hall just because you have some capabilities. After pausing for a moment, perfected immortal Yuchan hollered coldly, "Get lost." When he heard that, Su Zimo felt a sense of injustice. His expression turned cold and his aura changed starkly. Sensing the change in Su Zimo's body, Elder Zhong was shocked and grabbed Su Zimo's arm hurriedly. In a flash, he blocked in front of the ladder. "Zimo, don't be rash." Elder Zhong sent a voice transmission hurriedly with his spirit consciousness. In Flaming Sun Palace, he had witnessed Su Zimo's methods and temperament. He was truly decisive to kill and could cause blood to splatter within 5 steps in a fit of rage. But now, the other party was perfected immortal Yuchan, a legacy disciple of the academy. He must not go against him. Forget it. Elder Zhong sent a voice transmission. "We were in the wrong first after all. Let's go." Although the conversation in the Tao Hall was not a big deal, it was still a topic for ridicule. If they were to incur the wrath of a legacy disciple and clash head-on, Su Zimo would have a hard time in the inner sect in the future. In truth, Elder Zhong knew that even if they left now, Su Zimo and the other two would not have an easy time in the inner sect. The 3 of them had just joined the inner sect and were already scolded by a legacy disciple in front of tens of thousands of inner sect disciples. It was truly humiliating. From now on, no matter who came to preach the Tao, the 3 of them would attract strange gazes and ridicule the moment they stepped into the Tao Hall. Heis. Elder Zhong sighed internally. He was a little confused and did not know why senior brother Yuchan would suddenly fly into a rage and target Su Zimo and the other 2. It was almost as though he was deliberately making things difficult for them. It did not make sense that perfected immortal Yuchan and the other 2 did not know Su Zimo and the other 2. "Let's go. It's all my fault." Lu Ping tugged at the corner of Su Zimo's robes as well and blamed himself with an aggrieved and ashamed expression. "Get lost from the Tao Hall. Don't disturb us from learning. The Tao Hall doesn't welcome you." A series of shouts sounded from the surroundings once more. Princess Chi Hong pursed her lips tightly and lowered her head in silence. She had never suffered such humiliation in the Flaming Sun Immortal Kingdom. However, this was Cosmic Academy. She was a princess in the Flaming Sun Immortal Kingdom and an ordinary inner sect disciple in Cosmic Academy. No matter what grievances she had to endure it. Su Zimo remained silent and closed his eyes, calming his emotions gradually. His initially clenched fists gradually relaxed as well. "You're a frog in a well from the lower world after all. You don't know any manners." Perfected immortal Yuchan sneered. "Why? Servant, why aren't you getting lost? Are you indignant?" Initially, Su Zimo was already prepared to leave after the persuasion of Elder Zhong and the others. However, he suddenly stopped in his tracks when he heard that. Under normal circumstances, as a legacy disciple, perfected immortal Yuchan should not have known him. It was clear from perfected immortal Yuchan's reaction that he knew of Su Zimo's background. At the same time, Su Zimo finally recalled who the first few mocking voices in the crowd just now belonged to, Tangping. The reason for this matter was gradually becoming clear. If they were truly in the wrong first and were chased out of the Tao Hall, it was understandable. However, if someone was intentionally targeting them, Su Zimo would definitely not tolerate it. Chapter 2273. Su Zimo turned around slowly and looked in the direction of true immortal Utode with a mocking look in his eyes as he asked loudly, "I've just joined the inner sect and have never met senior brother Utode. How did you know that I'm from the lower world?" Although Su Zimo did not intend to leave, he was not rash enough to confront true immortal Utode directly or fight him. He was only a level 1 heavenly immortal and a true immortal could crush him to death with a single finger. Qianquan Academy had its own rules. Even true immortal disciples could not casually attack fellow sect members if they were merely exchanging a few words or having a conflict in the Tao field. If Su Zimo were to attack rashly and give true immortal Utode a chance to retaliate, he would truly be courting death. True immortal Utode knew that he had exposed himself with his words just now. However, he did not mind. He did not even care about a level 1 heavenly immortal who had just joined the inner sect, even the top of the Earth ranking. I'm asking you, are you indignant? True Immortal Utode did not reply to Su Zimo's question at all. He merely glared at Su Zimo with a burning gaze and asked word by word. Every single word caused the voids to tremble, and a rumbling might surge towards Su Zimo like raging waves. Everyone could tell that Su Zimo's rebuttal had truly angered True Immortal Utode. At that moment, Su Zimo was not only enduring the pressure of the tens of thousands of heavenly immortals on the Tao field, he was also facing the wrath of True Immortal Utode. Zimo, let's leave. Elder Zhong whispered with a pale expression. Although he was an inner sect elder, in front of a core disciple, he still had to lower his head and did not dare to contradict a core disciple. I'm indignant. Su Zimo had a fearless expression as he met True Immortal Utode's gaze and asked indifferently, Senior Brother Utode, are you prepared to take me down? Private fights were not allowed in Shankuan Academy. No matter who it was, they had to go to the Sword Discourse Arena if they wanted to fight. If True Immortal Yuchan wanted to fight him on the Sword Discourse Arena as a true disciple, he would be the one to lose face. It was like an adult taking the initiative to challenge a 3-year-old child, and even announcing it proudly in public. This would only attract the ridicule of others. Su Zimo was certain that True Immortal Yuchan could not afford to lose face like this. As expected, True Immortal Yuchan suddenly chuckled and retracted the terrifying aura just now. He said, my cultivation level is far above yours. If I were to attack you, you would be even more indignant. Others would also say that I'm bullying the weak. Just now, I'm talking about the Tao heart. The strength of the Tao heart has nothing to do with cultivation. Since you're not convinced, then follow me to climb the Tao heart stairs. Tao heart stairs? Su Zimo frowned slightly. He had just entered the inner sect and had never heard of the Tao heart ladder. When Elder Zhong saw Su Zimo's confused expression, he explained softly, the Tao heart stairs is an extremely special cultivation ground in the academy. It can only be used to cleanse one's Tao heart. There are a total of 9 steps on the Tao heart stairs. Each stone step was left behind by the person with the strongest Tao heart in the history of the academy. With a strong Tao heart, the heaven and earth would tremble and the great Tao would resonate, forming a supreme will. Su Zimo asked, in that case, the 9 stone steps are not real. That's right, Elder Zhong said, although they are not real, each stone step truly exists. Everyone who steps on the Tao heart stairs will have to withstand the supreme will left behind by the owner of the stone steps. If their Tao heart cannot withstand it, they will fall from above. One can only ascend to the second step after withstanding the impact of the first step. Every year, cultivators will head there to cleanse their Tao hearts and attempt to climb higher stone steps. Su Zimo understood. In other words, the stronger one's Tao heart was, the higher one could climb on the Tao heart stairs. The strength of one's Tao heart had nothing to do with one's cultivation realm. It all depended on how firm one's heart was in seeking the Tao and how much temptation one could withstand. Life, death, illness, and the 7 emotions and 6 desires, every single one of them was a form of tempering for one's Tao heart. No matter how high one's cultivation realm was, it would be difficult to break free from it. Su Zimo asked again, how many people in Heaven and Earth Academy can ascend to the 9th step? How many? Elder Zhong was shocked. Indeed, this person who ascended from the lower realm knows nothing. He's just a frog at the bottom of a well. The ignorant are truly fearless. When the many heaven immortals heard Su Zimo's question, they burst into laughter. In the crowd, Yan Bingying could not help but chuckle. Senior Brother Qingyun, Su Zimo is bound to lose. It's not enough to just lose. Fang Qingyun shook his head gently. If we can make his Tao heart collapse and he can't cultivate in the future, we'll be able to comfort Junior Brother Pang Yu's spirit in heaven. What should we do? Tang Peng asked. Fang Qingyun smiled indifferently. That will depend on Senior Brother Yuchan's methods. Elder Zhong rolled up his sleeves and wiped off his sweat. Every single step of the Tao heart staircase is no ordinary stone step. How can it be that easy? From what I know, apart from the Patriarch, no one in the academy can ascend to the 9th step. It's already good enough if they can ascend to the second step, let alone the ninth. Most disciples of the academy, including legacy disciples, find it difficult to surpass the third stone step. When he heard that, Su Zimo understood why the surrounding heaven immortals were laughing. That suggestion of perfected immortal Yuchan was rather fair. However, since he dared to make such a suggestion, he must have immense confidence in himself. As for Su Zimo, he had never ascended the Tao Heart staircase and had no experience. In that aspect, he naturally could not compare to perfected immortal Yuchan. Su Zimo, are you afraid? A mocking expression appeared on perfected immortal Yuchan's face. If you don't dare, then apologize to me respectfully right here in Scram. Don't let me see you again. Cut the crap and lead the way. Su Zimo replied indifferently. Elder Zhong wanted to stop him, but it was too late. Sighing internally, he pondered for a moment before sending a voice transmission with his spirit consciousness. Su Zimo, that's good too. It's fine if you agree to it. However, don't try to be brave on the Tao Heart staircase. If you can't take it, retreat immediately and you won't be injured. Su Zimo, you're too sharp. Elder Zhong lamented, if you want to survive in the upper world, there are times when you have to endure. Just like earlier on, we were scolded and embarrassed. That's nothing much since we didn't suffer any losses. We can just leave. There's no need to try to be brave. Elder, you're right. Su Zimo did not refute and merely smiled. It's just that our Daos are different. There were countless cultivators and all of them pursued different Daos. Perhaps, some people's Daos were about restraint and caution. If they were asked to scram, they would scram. If they were asked to kneel, they would kneel. There was nothing wrong with their Daos. Perhaps, there was no difference in their Daos. However, that was not Su Zimo's Dao or Taraki Takeshi's Dao. From the moment Su Zimo stepped onto the path of cultivation, he wanted to fight against the heavens and avenge his debts of gratitude and revenge. It was better to live a grand life than to live an ignoble existence. If he wanted to live an ignoble existence, what was the point of seeking immortality? If he did not have such a Tao heart and perseverance, he would not have been able to reach this point. If he did not have such a Tao heart, he would not have dared to accept the challenge and ascend the Tao heart staircase with perfected immortal Yuchan. Chapter 2274. Perfected immortal Yuchan smiled faintly as he headed in the direction of the Tao heart stairs. To him, dealing with a rank 1 heavenly immortal who had just joined the inner sect was as easy as lifting a finger. Although he was a legacy disciple, he was ranked last among the hundreds of disciples in the inheritance ground and was nothing much. However, Moonlight Sword Immortal was different. In the inheritance ground, Moonlight Sword Immortal was one of the top 3. If he could make use of this opportunity to get closer to Moonlight Sword Immortal and obtain some guidance from her, that would be a great opportunity. In the Qianquan Academy, no matter if it was the inner or outer sects or the place of true inheritance, there would naturally be groups of various sizes and factions. If one was alone without any backing, it would be difficult for them to establish themselves in the academy. In fact, Heaven and Earth Academy usually turned a blind eye to the fights between disciples of different factions. In fact, they even tacitly agreed to it. As long as they did not violate the sect rules, there were more advantages than disadvantages for them to spar. The path of cultivation was filled with danger and bloodshed. If one did not have the experience of fighting in the academy, they would not be able to adapt to the cruel world outside after leaving the academy. Initially, perfected immortal Yuchan merely wanted to chase Su Zimo out and embarrass him. However, Su Zimo's rebuttal enraged him. A rank 1 heavenly immortal who had just joined the inner sect and ascended from the lower world dared to go against him? So what if he was the top of the earth ranking? Perfected immortal Yuchan already had a plan in mind and intended to make use of the Tao Heart Stairs to teach Su Zimo an unforgettable lesson. There was no danger in the Tao Heart Stairs itself. However, if a cultivator who ascended the Tao Heart Stairs could not withstand the impact of the Tao Hearts left behind by the experts above and insisted on not retreating, their Tao Hearts would collapse and they would enter Qi deviation. In the best-case scenario, it would be difficult for their cultivation to improve. In the worst-case scenario, Their cultivation might even collapse. Tens of thousands of heavenly immortal experts headed towards the Tao Heart Stairs in a mighty manner, forming an extremely majestic scene in the inner sect. What's going on? Some of the other inner sect disciples did not know what was going on and went up to ask. Someone laughed. A rank 1 heavenly immortal who just joined the inner sect is causing trouble in the Tao Hall. He provoked Senior Brother Yuchan and even wanted to compete with Senior Brother Yuchan on the Tao Heart Stairs. Who is it? Are you crazy? You're from the lower realm. You don't know any etiquette. No wonder. These disciples had long deviated from the truth through word of mouth. In other words, for the onlookers, the truth itself was not important. They only needed to know one thing. That was, a level 1 heavenly immortal actually dared to challenge a legacy disciple. The crowd surged. Princess Chi-Hong was originally lively and active, but at this moment, she had quietened down. She looked at Su Zimo with eyes filled with worry. Lu Ping clenched his fists tightly with a perturbed expression. He looked around at the strange gazes from time to time and listened to the mocking laughter from not far away. He felt uneasy. Su Zimo's expression was calm as he followed the crowd. Not long after, the crowd of cultivators passed through a lush forest and arrived at a spacious area. This place was quite spacious, but it was still a little crowded to accommodate tens of thousands of cultivators at once. After all, the Tao Heart Stairs was a place to baptize and temper one's Tao heart. It was rare for so many inner sect disciples to appear at the same time. There was an altar in the middle of the area. Looking down, one could see that there were mysterious runes carved on the altar. They were densely packed and seemed to be some sort of formation restriction. In the middle of the altar, there was a stone staircase that rose from the ground and had a total of 9 levels. Every single level of the stone staircase was neither ethereal nor corporeal. There was a strange light circulating on it and it emitted a boundless energy fluctuation. Standing before the altar, everyone felt as though they were not facing the Tao Heart Stairs. Instead, they were facing 9 eternal peerless experts that stood between the heavens and earth and looked down at them. An invisible pressure shrouded the area. When Elder Zhong saw that Su Zimo had made up his mind, he knew that there was no way he could persuade him otherwise and sent a voice transmission with his spirit consciousness. Su Zimo, there are a total of 9 levels on the Tao Heart Stairs. The first stone step was condensed by the former immortal King Tian Ming of the Academy and is known as the Step of Longevity. Among the 9 stone steps, the first one is relatively easy. That's because most cultivators seek the Tao of Longevity. Once they step onto the Step of Longevity, their Tao hearts will be similar and it's easy for them to resonate. The second stone step is called the Unfettered Step, and it was condensed by the Academy's immortal King Sui Xing. What this immortal king sought was great freedom and freedom. He wanted to do as he pleased and as he pleased. The impact of the unfettered step on a cultivator's Tao heart isn't too great. If you're unable to endure it, then you can just retreat. The third stone step is the Step of Slaughter. When he spoke up to hear, a trace of fear flashed in Elder Zhong's eyes, and he said, "Su Zimo, no matter what, you must not step onto this stone step." The Step of Slaughter has the greatest impact on a cultivator's Tao heart. If one's Tao heart is unstable, then the slightest carelessness will cause one to fall into the desire to slaughter, lose oneself, and suffer from qi deviation. In the Academy, regardless of whether it's the inner court or elite disciples, most cultivators are unable to surmount this Step of Slaughter. As for the later stages, I haven't come into contact with them. I heard there's the Step of Nature, the Step of Fearlessness, right? Elder Zhong seemed to have thought of something and said, "The 9th stone step was condensed by our patriarch's Tao heart. However, no one in the Academy is able to step onto it." "Su Zimo, are you afraid?" Right then, an ear-piercing teasing voice sounded, causing many cultivators to roar with laughter. When perfected immortal Yuchan saw Su Zimo's silence, he thought that the latter was afraid and provoked him. "Su Zimo, if you're afraid, I'll compete with you." At this moment, another voice sounded. Su Zimo looked over and saw many inner sect disciples crowding around Fang Qingyun, Yan Binging and Tang Ping not far away. The person who spoke was Tang Peng. He was worried that Su Zimo would back off at the last minute out of fear of the reputation of being a legacy disciple. That was the reason why he jumped out impatiently. Tang Ping smiled. Su Zimo, we're both inner sect disciples. I'm not bullying you for ascending the Tao Heart staircase with you. Su Zimo glanced at Tang Peng from the corner of his eyes before retracting his gaze and saying indifferently, "You're not worthy." Tang Peng was stunned for a moment before he was enraged. Insolent. Brazen. Before Tang Peng could say anything, some inner sect disciples had already jumped out and hollered. Tang Peng's gaze was sharp like an eagle's and shone with a cold glint. He glared at Su Zimo with a murderous aura and said coldly, "All right, let's see how many levels of the Tao Heart staircase you can clear." Su Zimo could not be bothered with him and walked towards the Tao Heart staircase. Perfected immortal Yuchan was already standing there. "Zimo, be careful." Princess Chi Hong reminded softly with a worried expression. Lu Ping was nervous as well, as though he was even more nervous than ascending the Tao Heart staircase personally. Elder Zhong sent another voice transmission. "Su Zimo, you must remember not to force yourself. If you feel that something is amiss, retreat immediately." With his back facing the three of them, Su Zimo waved and arrived at the altar before long, standing side by side with perfected immortal Yuchan. Right then, Tang Peng suddenly stepped forward and came to Su Zimo's left, sandwiching Su Zimo in the middle with perfected immortal Yuchan. Chapter 2275. When Princess Chi Hong saw that, she was a little worried and asked softly, "Elder Zhong, will the two of them attack Zimo when they ascend the Tao Heart staircase?" "No, cultivators are not allowed to fight on the Tao Heart staircase." Elder Zhong shook his head gently. After pausing for a moment, he seemed to have recalled something and his expression changed slightly. "What's wrong?" When Princess Chi Hong saw Elder Zhong's odd expression, she asked hurriedly. Elder Zhong replied, "While fighting is not allowed on the Tao Heart staircase, talking is not prohibited. If Tang Peng or senior brother Yu Toad were to provoke Su Zimo verbally during the Tao Heart trial, there might be unpredictable consequences." Verbal attacks were often even more frightening and dangerous. That was the reason why there were divine powers and mystic skills such as verbal attacks. Fights between top cultivators were extremely cautious. Most of the time, they would test each other verbally and search for flaws in the other party. During the Tao Heart trial, if Su Zimo was provoked by Tang Peng or perfected immortal Yu Toad's words and revealed a flaw in his mental state, there was a high chance that his Tao Heart would collapse. If Su Zimo had ascended the Tao Heart staircase before and had some experience, he might be able to deal with it. But now, it was Su Zimo's first time ascending the Tao Heart staircase. If anyone were to interrupt him verbally while he was undergoing the Tao Heart trial, the consequences would be unpredictable. At that thought, just as Elder Zhong was about to send a voice transmission to remind them, Su Zimo and the other two suddenly moved. Almost at the same time, they ascended the first level of the Tao Heart staircase. A series of mysterious lights shone from the sacrificial altar, forming a sealed barrier that isolated all sounds from the outside world. "We're a step too late." Elder Zhong sighed internally and could only pray secretly, "I hope that Su Zimo can survive this calamity. The heavens help the worthy." The first stone step of the Tao Heart staircase. When Su Zimo stepped onto the stone steps, he suddenly felt a strong will that was slowly breaking through the obstacles on the path of cultivation and advancing forward courageously despite the hardships he had to face. "Immortals caress my head and grant me eternal life. The world of mortals is full of intrigue, bloodshed, battles, karma, reincarnation. I only seek the Tao of immortality." Su Zimo seemed to be chasing after the footsteps of his predecessors, and he was moving through the endless river of time to temper his Tao Heart. The Tao of longevity was also the Tao that most cultivators sought. On the path of cultivation, only by adhering to one's own Taoist heart, not being disturbed by external things, and not being confused by inner demons, could one reach the other shore. Once one's Tao Heart was shaken, one's beliefs would collapse along with it. At that time, inner demons would breed, and one's temperament would change greatly. Even one's cultivation and attainments could be completely dispersed in a short period of time. Su Zimo stood on the first step of the Tao heart staircase and endured the longevity will to temper and cleanse his Tao heart, making it purer and firmer. The power of the Tao heart ladder was not targeted at the physical body or the primordial spirit, but at the Tao heart. Only with a strong enough Tao heart could one remain unaffected by the longevity will. For example, some cultivators might seek the sword Tao. The way of the sword required one to advance courageously, and one would rather break than bend. However, under the impact of the longevity will, if one's Tao heart was not firm enough, they would be confused and even doubt themselves. Why did one have to break rather than bend? Why did one have to die indiscriminately? There was only hope and eternal life if one was alive. Once such confusion arose, one's Tao heart would waver. Perfected immortal Yu Chan and Tang Peng had climbed the Tao heart staircase countless times and were the most familiar with the longevity will on the first step. The two of them had a relatively easy time dealing with it. Su Zimo, what's the Tao you seek? Tang Peng's eyes flashed with a cold glint as he suddenly asked. Although Su Zimo heard Tang Peng's voice, he was immersed in the tempering of his Tao heart and could not be bothered with anything else. When Tang Peng saw that Su Zimo did not answer, he continued, no matter what your Tao is, you should at least learn how to judge the situation. That's the only way you can survive and attain eternal life. Su Zimo remained expressionless and did not answer. During that period of time, Tang Peng tried to provoke Su Zimo verbally, but the latter turned a deaf ear to it. Later on, Tang Peng's Tao heart was almost broken by the longevity will because he was constantly distracted by talking. Frightened, he hurriedly maintained his Tao heart and guarded his beer. Perfected immortal Yu Chan did not say anything. Even if one's Tao heart was broken on the first step, the damage dealt would not be great. However, if Su Zimo could continue climbing and reach the third step, that would be the best opportunity to strike. Senior brother Qinyun, how long do you think Su Zimo can last? Yan Bingying asked. A heaven immortal at the side pouted his lips and said in disdain, it's already not bad if he can last for 15 minutes on the first step of the Tao heart staircase. Fang Qingyun shook his head gently. That person's Tao heart is firm and it won't be an issue for him to pass the first step. It's just a matter of whether he'll end up on the second or third step. Right then, perfected immortal Yu Chan moved and raised his foot, stepping onto the second step. So fast. As expected of a legacy disciple. He managed to pass the test of the longevity staircase in such a short period of time. A series of exclamations sounded from the crowd. The moment perfected immortal Yu Chan stepped onto the second step, he turned around and looked at Su Zimo with a fake smile. I'll be waiting for you at the front. Although that statement seemed simple, it was filled with provocation. Furthermore, it brought immense pressure to Su Zimo. However, Su Zimo was unmoved. His expression was calm as he continued to endure the Tao heart trial of the longevity staircase. This trial of the Tao heart on the stone steps was all new to him. The reason why he took a long time was not because his Tao heart was not strong enough, but because he was too unfamiliar with the Tao heart trial and needed time to adapt. In the blink of an eye, 15 minutes passed. Tang Peng's eyes shone brightly as he suddenly took a step forward and ascended the second step. Ha! The moment he stepped onto the second step, Tang Peng turned back to look at Su Zimo and laughed. You're too slow. If you can't hold on. Before Tang Peng could finish, Su Zimo moved as well. He stepped onto the second step and was not far behind Tang Peng. Tang Peng's voice came to a stop. He was a level 9 heavenly immortal and had cultivated in Heaven and Earth Academy for many years. He had ascended the Tao heart staircase hundreds of times, if not thousands. However, Su Zimo had just joined the inner sect and was only a level 1 heavenly immortal. Furthermore, he was from the lower realm. Yet he was not weaker than him? At the thought of that, Tang Peng's anger, jealousy, suspicion, indignation, and all sorts of complicated emotions surged uncontrollably. What rights did a servant have? Both of us ascended the second step at almost the same time. How would others view me? Am I inferior to a servant and a level 1 heavenly immortal? All sorts of thoughts surged into Tang Peng's mind and his head felt like it was about to explode. His eyes were bloodshot and his expression was dark while the essence qi within his body was in chaos. Not good. Fang Qingyun frowned. Tang Peng's Tao heart has fallen. Before he could finish his sentence, Tang Peng cried out and fell straight down the Tao heart staircase onto the altar in an extremely wretched state. Tang Peng's face was pale as he panted heavily. His entire body was trembling and his pupils were dilated as though he had suffered a great shock. Chapter 2276. The Tao heart intent of another immortal king was condensed on the second stone step. Initially, Tang Peng's Tao heart was only at the second stone step. Now that he had ascended the second stone step, he failed to stabilize his mind and defend his Tao heart. Instead, he wanted to mock and attack Su Zimo. As a result, his Tao heart revealed a flaw and was instantly destroyed by the powerful intent of the stone step. This was the carefree stare, and the impact on a cultivator's Tao heart was not too strong. Even so, a crack appeared on Tang Peng's Tao heart. He would have to enter seclusion for a period of time upon his return before he could recover completely. Tang Peng has embarrassed himself greatly this time round. He took the initiative to provoke but ended up falling. He was probably too careless. This Su Zimo is truly capable. He managed to ascend to the second level on his first attempt at the Tao heart staircase. The surrounding inner disciples whispered to each other. When Princess Qi Hong and Lu Ping saw that Su Zimo was fine, their expressions relaxed as well. Fang Qingyun raised his head slightly. Two inner sect disciples behind him understood and hurried forward to help Tang Peng down. Even after leaving the Tao heart staircase, Tang Peng did not seem to have recovered from his stupor. His body trembled continuously and his gaze was empty, as though he did not recognize anyone. The Tao heart intent of the second stone step had too great of an impact on him. Although he had fallen from the Tao heart staircase after his Tao heart was lost, his mind had yet to extricate itself from it. Fang Qingyun closed his fingers and a spirit light appeared on his fingertips, tapping gently on Tang Peng's glabella. Tang Peng's expression froze and he fainted. Fang Qingyun said, "Let him sleep for a while. He'll regain his consciousness after he wakes up." On the Tao heart staircase, Su Zimo and True Immortal Yu-Toad stood side by side once more. "Not bad," True Immortal Yu-Toad chuckled and said leisurely, "to think that you would be able to clear the first level's Tao heart trials so quickly." On the second stone step, True Immortal Yu-Toad had a relaxed expression. While enduring the Tao heart trial, he could still divert his attention to speak. Su Zimo remained silent. Actually, the carefree will of the second stone step is nothing much. The third step is the true Tao heart trial. True Immortal Yu-Toad continued. Su Zimo remained silent. The reason why True Immortal Yu-Chan spoke was because he wanted Su Zimo to reply. Once he replied, no matter what it was, he would definitely be distracted. However, Su Zimo did not fall for it. Thus, True Immortal Yu-Chan stopped probing. He remained silent and focused on resisting the trial of the second stone step. Good or evil, black or white, I don't care. I only want to be free and unfettered. I want to do as I please. The world, the rules, the 7 emotions and 6 desires, nothing can restrain me. Under the influence of that Tao heart, Su Zimo felt as though he had returned to Tianhuang mainland and was back to the time when he had just started cultivating. He was back on the path of cultivation and only wanted to be carefree. Holding on to his carefree Tao heart, he lived more freely and freely. There was no burden on his body, and he could do whatever he wanted. Su Zimo gradually lost himself in this state, unable to extricate himself. However, when he saw the countless citizens of Yen country destitute and homeless, and when he saw Su Hong pass away with his own eyes, his heart was still filled with intense emotions. It was as though something had broken through the fog and broken free from the shackles of his carefree self. I want to establish a Tao. Su Zimo stood on the second stone step and suddenly said something. His voice was so soft that almost no one could hear him clearly. However, these 4 words exploded in his mind like a sudden clap of thunder. Those were the words that he said personally back then. From then on, he embarked on an extremely difficult Tao with an uncertain future. On that Tao, no one could help him or give him any experience. He could only advance alone. However, when Su Zimo woke up, the Tao of carefree could no longer affect his Tao heart. That was the heart of Wu Dao. He advanced courageously and was fearless. Right then, perfected immortal Yuchan stepped onto the third stone step and turned back to look at Su Zimo with a faint smile. "I'll wait for you at the front." Before his sentence was finished, Su Zimo stepped onto the third stone step as well. There was quite a stir in the crowd. More than half of the tens of thousands of inner sect disciples present could not ascend to the third stone step. But now, this rank 1 heavenly immortal who had just joined the inner sect had already surpassed most of them. Not good. Elder Zhong, on the other hand, looked solemn and worried. He said, "The third stone step is the step of slaughter. It's the most dangerous step. Once the Taoist heart is lost, it's very likely that it will lead to qi deviation and the destruction of one's cultivation." When perfected immortal Yuchan saw Su Zimo follow closely behind and ascend to the third stone step as well, the smile on his lips vanished and his expression darkened. This time round, he did not say anything to provoke Su Zimo. Because even he had to concentrate fully on the third stone step, calm his heart, condense his energy, and guard his soul with his mind to resist the impact of the slaughter Tao heart. Although he could ascend to the third stone step, he had never been able to cross this step. Kill. The Tao of massacre exists in one's heart. Any concerns, shackles, obstacles, obstructions, and karma can only be killed. Only by killing can you destroy everything and everything in the world and carve out a bloody path so that there will be no more obstructions in front of you. The moment he stepped onto the third stone step, Su Zimo felt a chilling killing intent that was so thick that it was almost corporeal descending upon him. The Tao of massacre was one that upheld the word, kill, regardless of right or wrong in everything. Killing intent enveloped and attacked one's heart. If one's Tao heart was not strong, resolute, or pure enough, there was a high chance that they would lose their rationality and enter qi deviation after being affected by the killing intent. Su Zimo defended his Tao heart and withstood the killing intent on the third stone step continuously. The killing intent was much more frightening and dangerous than the longevity and unfettered intents from before, and the impact was much stronger as well. However, no matter how strong the killing intent was, it could not shake Su Zimo's Wu Dao heart. The two true bodies were connected. The Dao heart stairs were not only testing the Dao heart of Qinglian's true body but also the Dao heart of Wu Dao's true body. Although it was in Qinglian's town that stepped onto the Dao heart stairs, Wu Dao's true body that was far away in the demon territory was also undergoing the tempering and baptism of the Dao heart. No matter how strong the killing intent was, how could it defeat the spirit of Wu Dao's heart? "I want to establish my Dao. I want to break the shackles of fate that bind all living beings. I want to change the fate of all living beings. I want all living beings in this world to be able to cultivate and become immortals. I want everyone to be like dragons." The Tao of massacre could destroy everything, but it could not destroy Su Zimo's Wu Dao heart. It could not sever the true martial great Tao. Bang! Su Zimo roared and his gaze was like lightning. Suddenly, he lifted his foot and stepped onto the fourth stone step. The crowd was shocked and was in an uproar. On the third stone step, perfected immortal Yuchan was still trying his best to defend against the impact of the killing intent and was already struggling. Su Zimo's actions caused his Dao heart to waver and he was almost defeated by the killing intent. Not good. Perfected immortal Yuchan was shocked and hurriedly focused, wanting to stabilize his Dao heart and hold on. Right then, Su Zimo glanced sideways and said indifferently, "Senior brother Yuchan, I'll wait for you at the front." That was initially said by perfected immortal Yuchan to agitate Su Zimo. But now, it was the final straw that crushed his Dao heart. Perfected immortal Yuchan was enraged and his killing intent surged. The moment that killing intent appeared, it was uncontrollable and burst forth like a ferocious beast. The error-free chapters of Eternal Saint King will continue to be updated on the forum and there will be no advertisements on the forum. Please bookmark and recommend the forum. If you like Eternal Saint King, please bookmark Eternal Saint King. Chapter 2277. The killing intent surged into true immortal Utoad's consciousness, and true immortal Utoad's essence spirit was tainted with blood. Not good. True immortal Utoad was alarmed and realized that something was amiss. He hurriedly composed himself and held his breath, wanting to dissipate the killing intent in his heart. However, the killing intent on the third stone step was extremely ferocious and swarmed in the moment it found an opening. Given true immortal Utoad's strength, he could not defend against the killing intent of the third stone step to begin with. Now that his Tao heart was shaken, his consciousness was taken over by the killing intent in the blink of an eye. His eyes were bloodshot and his expression was extremely menacing. Kill, kill, kill. True immortal Utoad waved his arms repeatedly with a tragic expression. He roared at the top of his lungs and was already in a frenzy. Everyone could tell that true immortal Utoad's Tao heart was corroded by the killing intent, and he was in a state of chi deviation that he could not extricate himself from. This is bad. Fang Qingyun frowned slightly and murmured softly. The tens of thousands of inner sect disciples were horrified as well. Under normal circumstances, when cultivators ascended the Tao heart staircase, their Tao hearts would not be able to withstand the impact of the will on the stone steps, and they would be able to escape unscathed if they hurried down when they saw that something was amiss. However, true immortal Utoad's situation was different this time round. That was because Su Zimo surpassed him and ascended the fourth stone step, causing his Tao heart to waver and reveal an opening. Right then, he was enraged and killing intent surged in his heart. That killing intent resonated with the killing intent on the third stone step and instantly occupied true immortal Utoad's consciousness. It was already too late for him to break free. There were many inner sect disciples outside the altar. However, none of them could step forward to save him at that moment. The barrier formed by countless runes outside the altar could not only isolate sound, it could even isolate everything. The power of a heaven immortal expert could not penetrate it at all. Senior brother Qingyun, what should we do? Yan Bingying was worried when she saw that. Someone will come. Fang Qingyun had a calm expression and was in no hurry. True immortal Utoad was a legacy disciple and there were many experts in the academy. If someone sensed the commotion here, they would definitely not stand by idly. True immortals, regardless of their strength, were a force that could not be ignored in any sect. Right at that moment, a figure stepped past the many cultivators and instantly pierced through the barrier outside the altar, arriving before the Tao heart stairs. With a wave of his sleeves extended for dozens of feet and directly swept true immortal Yuchan down from the third stone step. Elder Xian! Elder Zhong exclaimed softly. The person who attacked was the old man Su Zimo saw outside the Earth Grade Secret Pavilion. This old man was quite mysterious in the Heaven and Earth Academy. He guarded the various secret pavilions of the sect. Sometimes he would be in the Earth Grade Secret Pavilion, and sometimes he would be in the Heaven Grade Secret Pavilion. No one knew his cultivation state or his status in the academy. All they knew was that there seemed to be no one in the Universe Academy that dared to offend Elder Xian. Now, seeing that Elder Xian could easily pass through the barrier of the altar, it proved that Elder Xian's cultivation had surpassed the heavenly immortal realm. Even though true immortal Yuchan had been saved by Elder Xian from the third stone step, he still hadn't regained his consciousness. His expression was ferocious, and his eyes were blood red. His face and neck were covered in blood, and he roared and struggled continuously. However, Elder Xian's sleeves seemed to contain boundless strength as they wrapped around true immortal Yuchan's body, preventing the latter from moving at all. After more than 10 breaths, true immortal Yuchan gradually calmed down. The blood vessels in his eyes and face gradually receded, as though he had regained consciousness. Elder Xian withdrew his sleeves. True immortal Yuchan opened his mouth slightly, as though he wanted to say something. Exclamation point. However, he did not say a single word. Instead, he spat out a mouthful of blood and fell straight to the ground, unconscious. Elder Xian glanced at true immortal Yuchan and shook his head slightly. His attack was already very fast, but he was still a step too late. True immortal Yuchan's Tao heart was penetrated by the massacre intent and completely collapsed. His cultivation of more than 100,000 years was destroyed overnight. True immortal Yuchan's Tao fruit was already filled with cracks in his consciousness. Even if he could wake up, he would not have much combat strength left. The only thing he retained was the experience of cultivating to the true immortal realm. How is senior brother Yuchan? Yan Bingying could not help but ask. Fang Qingyun's gaze was deep as he said faintly, "From now on he's most likely a cripple. He should have no choice but to spend the rest of his life in the servant yard." Pissed. Many cultivators were speechless with shocked expressions. In everyone's hearts, a legacy disciple was an unreachable existence. Never had they imagined that under their gazes, he would fall from the lofty altar and shatter into pieces, and he would suffer such a miserable fate. Instinctively, many cultivators turned their gazes towards the green-robed cultivator standing on the fourth stone step. The mockery, contempt and arrogance in the eyes of many inner sect disciples had vanished. Although true immortal Yuchan's cultivation was destroyed because he ascended the Tao heart staircase, it was inextricably linked to Su Zimo. That person crippled a legacy disciple the moment he joined the inner sect. How ruthless! He's the leader of the Weibridge after all. What sort of Tao heart did that lad condense to be so strong that he could cross the third stone step? Even most of the legacy disciples of the academy could not cross the killing intent on the third stone step. But now, the massacre stone step was surpassed by a rank 1 heavenly immortal who had just joined the inner sect and had never ascended the Tao heart staircase before. Zimo won. Princess Qi Hong finally revealed a smile as she applauded. After Elder Zhong calmed down from the shock in his heart, he heaved a sigh of relief and shook his head. To think that Su Zimo would be able to cross the third stone step on his first attempt at the Tao heart staircase. The younger generation will surpass us in time. I knew that senior brother Su would definitely win. Lu Ping chuckled as well. Kid, why are you calling him senior brother Su now? Princess Qi Hong relaxed and asked jokingly when she saw that Su Zimo was fine and even defeated true immortal Yuchan and Tang Peng. Lu Ping replied in all seriousness, "Although we're at the same cultivation realm, I'm definitely not as strong as senior brother Su in terms of combat strength. Therefore, it's only logical for me to address him as senior brother. Furthermore, my life was given to me by senior brother Su. It's not too much to call him my benefactor." Lu Ping pursed his lips and continued, "However, we're from the same sect after all. It's a little awkward to address him as benefactor. Su Zimo has already defeated senior brother Tang Peng and senior brother Yuchan. Why is he still standing at the top? Could it be that he still wants to cross the fourth stone step? What a huge ambition." Discussions broke out in the crowd and Princess Qi Hong could not help but ask, "Elder Zhong, what sort of intent is hidden on the fourth stone step?" "I heard that the fourth stone step is a natural step." Elder Zhong replied, "I've never experienced the exact feeling either. However, the difficulty of climbing the Tao heart staircase will only increase. I heard that there's a step of the sword Tao at the end that is even more dangerous than the massacre staircase." Chapter 2278. The outcome of the battle between Yuchan True Immortal and Su Zimo had already been decided. However, the tens of thousands of inner sect disciples present had no intention of leaving. Everyone's gaze landed on the green-robed cultivator on the fourth stone step. They wanted to see how long this new disciple could last. After saving Yuchan True Immortal, Elder Xian did not leave. Instead, he stood at the side of the altar and watched Su Zimo quietly. His potential is indeed extraordinary. I didn't expect his Tao heart to be so strong. Elder Xian muttered softly. When he first saw Su Zimo outside the Earth-level secret pavilion, he could tell that Su Zimo was outstanding at first glance. He had a high opinion of Su Zimo in his heart. However, he did not expect Su Zimo to be able to reach the fourth stone step on his first attempt at the Tao heart staircase and last for so long. Elder Xian's opinion of Su Zimo rose to another level. After so many years, the academy has finally recruited a good seedling. Elder Xian nodded secretly as a look of admiration flashed across his eyes. On the fourth stone step of the Dao Heart staircase, Su Zimo did not move. He closed his eyes and experienced the will of nature on the fourth stone step. The way of nature, unity of heaven and man. All living things in the world have their own ways of survival. All living things are nurtured without harming each other. Their daos run parallel without conflicting. Our cultivation should be quiet and do nothing, following the way of heaven. As the saying goes, man follows earth, earth follows heaven, heaven follows Tao, Tao follows nature. Unlike the ferocious and bloody massacre will, the will of nature was like a drizzle in early spring. It infiltrated with the wind and silently moistened everything, subtly influencing Su Zimo's Dao heart. He had just broken free from the bloody swamp of the massacre will and was bathed in a warm and gentle spring rain. It was like sweet dew after a long drought. In this drizzle, Su Zimo's essence, energy, and spirit were greatly comforted and comforted. He could not help but sink into it and linger. This was even harder to resist than the massacre will just now. The time Su Zimo spent on the fourth stone step was longer than the time spent on the previous 3 stone steps combined. For a moment, Qinglian's Taoist heart was about to sink. However, the Tao heart of Wu Dao's true body was burning fiercely. It was the flames of war. That was an unyielding resistance, a fearless war that fought against the heavens. At this moment, Wu Dao's original body and Qinglian Tao's thoughts were connected. They resisted the erosion of nature's will together. The flames of war incinerated the drizzle and dispersed the spring breeze. What peace and quiet! What complying with the heavenly Tao! If I wanted to comply with the heavenly Tao, I, Su Zimo, should not have stepped into the path of cultivation. I would have died long ago in that small town in the corner of Tianhuang mainland. Wu Dao's chances are slim, but I have nothing to fear. Wu Dao, I am willing to walk alone. On the fourth step, Su Zimo suddenly opened his eyes and took a step forward. But Su Zimo's feet had already stepped onto the 5th stone step. Heavens, he's up another stone step. Hurry, inform senior brother Lin that someone has ascended the 5th stone step. What a strong Tao heart! How can a rank 1 heavenly immortal who ascended from the lower realm possess such a strong Tao heart? A commotion broke out from the crowd in a deafening manner. Old Xian nodded slightly with an even deeper look of admiration in his eyes. The 5th stone step, the fearless step. Su Zimo stood on the 5th stone step for less than 10 breaths. Before everyone's discussions died down, Su Zimo raised his foot and stepped onto the 6th stone step once more. Ah! A series of exclamations sounded as many cultivators looked at the green-robed figure on the Tao heart steps with dumbfounded expressions as though they had seen a ghost. 6th stone step? Impossible, impossible. If I remember correctly, he's only just stepped onto the 5th stone step. How could he have ascended another stone step so quickly? The eyes of many cultivators were filled with disbelief. This is impossible. Finally, a cultivator could not hold it in any longer. He dashed toward the Tao heart steps while mumbling, "Something must be wrong with the Tao heart steps. I'll give it a try too." After the cultivator stepped onto the 1st stone step, he stumbled down the stairs before he could even ascend to the 2nd stone step. The cultivators who were eager to give it a try immediately gave up on the thought after seeing this. Old Xian remained calm. The Tao heart steps had existed for countless years. Each step was formed by the will of the Tao hearts of various peerless experts. It was impossible for something to go wrong. However, even Old Xian had no idea how Su Zimo was able to ascend the 5th stone step so quickly. The 5th stone step was the fearless step. The will of the Tao heart on this step was extremely similar to the will of Wu Dao's heart. Therefore, it was extremely easy for one to pass the trial of the Tao heart on the 5th stone step with Wu Dao's heart. Senior brother Qing Yun, this Su Zimo is indeed impressive. Yan Bingying could not help but exclaim when she saw this. Although she was ranked in the top 10 of the inner sect, even she had not broken through to the 4th stone step. Fufu. A hint of jealousy flashed through the depths of Fang Qingyun's eyes before disappearing quickly. He chuckled softly. Don't worry, he'll definitely stop at the 6th stone step. That's right. Yan Bingying nodded. The 6th stone step is the step of the sword Dao and has an even stronger impact on the Dao heart than the step of massacre. Senior brother Qing Yun, you stopped at this step the previous time. Fang Qingyun said indifferently, during this period of time, my Dao heart has been perfected. When I try again after 100 years of cultivation, I'll definitely be able to cross the 6th stone step and reach the 7th step. At that time, the moment he said that, the figure on the Dao heart steps moved once more. Just like before, he simply lifted his foot and took a step forward. Bang! The 7th stone step. Fang Qingyun's expression froze and he could no longer continue. Yan Bingying's red lips were agape and her beautiful face was filled with shock. Her eyes were filled with disbelief. The 7th stone step. There seemed to be less than 5 people among all the disciples of Qiankuan Academy, including legacy disciples, who could reach the 7th stone step. To think that Su Zimo, who had just entered the inner sect, would be able to reach this step. This time round, there was not much noise from the crowd. On the contrary, the surroundings of the altar gradually calmed down and became so silent that one could hear a pin drop. Tens of thousands of cultivators gathered together and everyone held their breaths in shock as they looked at the figure on the Dao heart steps. Many cultivators forgot to breathe or speak. There was only a single thought left in everyone's minds. How many steps could this person reach? Could Su Zimo be able to reach the 8th step of the Dao heart steps? Tens of thousands of cultivators gathered together and everyone held their breaths in shock as they looked at the figure on the Dao heart steps. Many cultivators forgot to breathe or speak. There was only a single thought left in everyone's minds. How many steps could this person reach? Could Su Zimo be able to reach the 8th step of the Dao heart steps? Chapter 2279. A green-robed cultivator stood on the 8th stone step. His black hair danced in the wind and he exuded an indescribable aura. The tens of thousands of inner sect disciples of the academy looked at that figure with conflicted expressions. Some of them had yet to recover from their shock. Some of them revealed looks of admiration and respect. Some of them lowered their heads in shame. Just now, they could only feel their cheeks burning in embarrassment at the thought of their mocking and disdainful sneers. That figure was merely standing on the 8th step of the Dao heart staircase. However, it was as though he had already ascended to the peak of the immortal Dao and was looking down on all living beings. In reality, that was not an illusion. None of the tens of thousands of inner sect disciples present had ascended the 8th stone step of the Dao heart staircase before. Even if most of the legacy disciples appeared, they would have to lower their heads when they saw that figure on the 8th stone step. The strength of one's Dao heart had nothing to do with one's cultivation realm. However, in the hearts of many cultivators, the higher one's cultivation realm was, the stronger their Dao heart would be. But now, Su Zimo's appearance had shattered the understanding of many cultivators. A rank 1 heaven immortal who had just entered the inner sect, ascended the Dao heart staircase for the first time and ascended from the lower realm. In everyone's opinion, it would be extremely difficult to surpass the 3rd stone step of the Dao heart staircase, let alone advance further. Right now, all of those identities were gathered on a single person. And that person was standing on the 8th stone step. Everyone still felt an intense sense of disbelief in their hearts. How was that possible? If they had not witnessed it with their own eyes, they would not have believed it no matter how many people described it. Su Zimo, oh Su Zimo. Elder Zhong shook his head and sighed, lamenting, I never expected that he would cause such a huge commotion the moment he entered the inner sect. For him to stand on the 8th stone step of the Dao heart staircase for the first time after entering the inner sect, that was equivalent to stepping on all the inner sect disciples. The shock of Su Zimo ascending the 8th stone step for many cultivators was even greater than the crippling of perfected immortal Yuchan. Lu Ping was long used to Su Zimo's methods. In his opinion, it was only natural that Su Zimo could ascend the 9th stone step. While Princess Qi Hong was delighted, she was also somewhat disappointed. She originally thought that she was already considered a rare genius. Although she was not as good as Su Zimo, there was not much of a difference. There was always a chance for her to catch up in the future. But now, she suddenly realized that the gap between the two of them was getting bigger and bigger. Even though their cultivations were at the same level, it seemed like she would never be able to catch up to that figure. Fang Qingyun was extremely shrewd. Even if true immortal Yuchan was crippled, he did not take it to heart and did not show much emotion in his eyes. However, at this moment, a trace of gloom appeared in his eyes. He suddenly felt a huge threat. Originally, he did not take Su Zimo, who had just entered the inner sect and ascended from the lower realm, seriously at all. In Fang Qingyun's opinion, with his methods, wanting to deal with Su Zimo was as simple as crushing an ant. Moreover, the difference between their cultivation realms was so great that Fang Qingyun had never regarded Su Zimo as an opponent. However, when Su Zimo stepped onto the 8th stone step and attracted the gazes of all the inner sect disciples, Fang Qingyun realized that his opponent in the inner sect had appeared. Although this opponent was still very weak now, he would definitely become a strong enemy in the future. Right then, a woman's whisper sounded from the side. Fang Qingyun glanced sideways and saw Yan Bingying staring fixedly at the figure on the 8th stone step. Her eyes were a little dazed as she muttered softly, "What has he experienced? How can he have such a strong Tao heart?" Fang Qingyun was most familiar with Yan Bingying's gaze. It was a gaze that was mixed with a hint of curiosity and admiration. Yan Bingying had only looked at him before. Instantly, Fang Qingyun's expression darkened as killing intent surfaced. Initially, he only wanted to teach Su Zimo a lesson. However, at this moment, his killing intent was triggered. As the number 1 fairy of the inner sect, Yan Bingying was interested in him. That was something that he knew long ago. However, he did not express his attitude clearly. However, that did not mean that others could lay their hands on Yan Bingying. Right then, on the altar, Old Xian, who was guarding the secret chamber, suddenly turned around and looked at Fang Qingyun deeply expressionlessly. There were no emotions in that gaze. However, in that instant, Fang Qingyun felt as though a basin of cold water had been poured over his head as he broke out in cold sweat and shuddered internally. Just a moment ago, Elder Xian's gaze seemed to have seen through his entire body from head to toe, inside and out. All of his thoughts, secrets, and even the killing intent that had just risen in his heart just now could not escape Old Xian's eyes. Fang Qingyun lowered his head hurriedly and avoided Old Xian's gaze. The darkness on his face vanished as he composed himself and panted slightly. In that instant, he felt as though he had just walked through the gates of hell. "Senior brother Qingyun, what's wrong?" Yan Bingying noticed Fang Qingyun's abnormality and asked. "Nothing." Fang Qingyun replied vaguely. Yan Bingying asked again, "Senior brother Qingyun, how long do you think Su Zimo can last on the 8th stone step?" "I'm not sure." Fang Qingyun was irritated and replied absent-mindedly. Seemingly oblivious to Fang Qingyun's change, Yan Bingying continued, "Senior brother Qingyun, it was indeed wrong of us to underestimate junior brother Su previously because of his background." Fang Qingyun harumphed coldly and did not reply. As though she had thought of something, Yan Bingying suddenly said, "Junior brother Su can't possibly reach the 9th stone step, right?" "Impossible." At that point, Fang Qingyun said instinctively, "The 9th stone step was condensed by the patriarch of the academy and is known as the step of wisdom. Even senior brother Yuehua would not be able to withstand it and fall from the Tao heart stairs the moment he stepped on the 9th stone step. What Su Zimo? How can he withstand the supreme wisdom of the patriarch?" The moment he said that, the figure on the 8th stone step moved once more. Su Zimo raised his foot and strode towards the 9th stone step. Many cultivators held their breaths and widened their eyes, glaring fixedly at the figure on the Tao heart stairs without even daring to blink. They were afraid that they would miss the most critical moment if they blinked. From the 8th stone step to the 9th stone step, Su Zimo seemed to be taking that step with extreme difficulty. His foot hovered above the 9th stone step and did not land for a long time. The hearts of the tens of thousands of inner sect disciples were suspended high as well, as though they were at the tip of their throats. All of them looked nervous, as though they were the ones involved. 10 breaths. 20 breaths. A quarter of an hour passed by. It seemed like he could not take that step any further. Just as everyone was about to relax, Su Zimo's foot landed on the 9th stone step with a thud and he ascended to the top. Chapter 2280. Unlike the Moonlight Sword Immortal, Su Zimo did not fall down the moment he reached the 9th stone step. Instead, he stood firmly on it with his back straight and unmoving. The 9th step. Ever since the Tao Heart Stairs existed, apart from the Patriarch, no one else in Qianquan Academy had been able to reach the 9th step. The 9th step was known as the Step of Wisdom. The Patriarch of the Academy was an erudite man who could see through all things and knew the secrets of the heavens. He possessed boundless wisdom, and the 9th step was formed by the Patriarch. It was said that after the Moonlight Sword Immortal failed to reach the 9th step, she only said a single sentence. The Patriarch's Tao heart is untouchable. He possesses supreme wisdom and is unpredictable. Ever since then, the Moonlight Sword Immortal never attempted to climb the 9th step again. As for the other disciples of Qianquan Academy, they did not even have the ability to touch the 9th step, let alone stand on it like Su Zimo. Impossible! Fang Qingyun clenched his fists instinctively and growled from the depths of his throat. However, he quickly realized that he had lost his composure and hurriedly composed himself, hiding the killing intent and hostility in his eyes as he looked around. Thankfully, no one noticed him at all. Even Elder Xian did not look at him again. Everyone's gazes landed on the figure on the 9th stone step. This was truly the center of attention. No one spoke. Tens of thousands of inner sect disciples were gathered in the huge venue. However, it was completely silent. Everyone was waiting for an outcome. Could this rank one heaven immortal who had just ascended from the lower realm and joined the inner sect pass the Tao heart trial on the 9th stone step? It had not been long since Tang Peng fainted and perfected immortal Yuchan was crippled. Any one of those incidents was enough to cause quite a stir in the academy. However, most cultivators had already forgotten about it and no one cared. More and more cultivators gathered around the Tao heart stairs. It was not only the inner sect disciples. Some legacy disciples had also rushed over from the legacy area and the entire Qianquan Academy was alarmed. Right then, a strange fluctuation appeared in midair. Immediately after, an old man in white robes appeared out of thin air with a walking stick. Although his hair and beard were white, he was hale and hearty. His eyes were bright as he looked at the green-robed cultivator on the Tao heart stairs. "Look, it's the Great Elder." Even the Great Elder is alarmed. Waves of restlessness appeared in the crowd. Elder Xian lifted his head slightly and glanced at the first elder before withdrawing his gaze. He didn't say anything. Suddenly, another figure appeared in another part of the void. As soon as this figure appeared, a thick murderous aura spread out. Behind him, it was as if a mountain of corpses and a sea of blood had appeared. This old man looked much younger, but his face was pale and his eyes were gloomy. His whole body was emitting a cold aura that kept people away. After the old man appeared, many disciples of the academy could not help but shiver. "It's Second Elder. I heard that the Second Elder is in charge of law enforcement. He is the most ruthless and impartial. There was once a true disciple who broke the rules of the sect and was directly crippled by him." "Silence. Don't let Second Elder notice you." The ripples that had just appeared in the crowd quickly calmed down. Swoosh. On the other side of the void, a pitch-black hole was suddenly burned by a ball of flames. An old man walked out from within, as though he was bathed in flames. Within the flames, countless divine weapons floated up and down. "It's the 8th Elder of the Academy." Elder Zhong said softly, "The 8th Elder is in charge of all the divine weapons and Dharma treasures in the Academy. If you want to obtain the best Dharma treasures and divine weapons in the sect, you have to obtain the permission of the 8th Elder." Senior brother Su caused such a huge commotion when he ascended the Tao heart stairs for the first time. 3 elders have already appeared. Lu Ping was secretly speechless. Ascending the Tao heart stairs is an unprecedented achievement. Elder Zhong lamented, It's only natural that these elders would appear to witness this scene. As the three of them spoke, another old man appeared in midair. This elder wore green robes. After he appeared, the entire place was filled with a faint medicinal fragrance that refreshed one's heart. This is the seventh elder of the academy. Elder Zhong saw that Princess Qi Hong and Lu Ping were confused and said, "The seventh elder is in charge of all the spirit pills and miraculous medicines in the academy. The immortal alchemists in the academy are all under the seventh elder's management." Before he finished speaking, another old man appeared. This old man had a benevolent look and looked extremely friendly. He had a smiling face and a white face without any facial hair. At first glance, one would have a good impression of him. This is the fourth elder. Elder Zhong bowed slightly in the direction of the fourth elder and said, "The fourth elder is mainly in charge of external affairs in the academy. He also has some battles and trials in the academy. For example, things like leading you to participate in the 10,000-year meeting are under the fourth elder's responsibility. I am under the fourth elder's command. How many elders are there in the academy?" Princess Qi Hong could not help but ask. There are many elders in the academy, and their cultivation realms are all different. However, there are only 9 elders with the highest status. Elder Zhong said, "The 9 elders each have their own duties and control everything in the academy. Under the patriarch are the 9 elders." While Elder Zhong was speaking, another 2 elders appeared. The 9th elder controlled the talismans of the academy. The 6th elder was a beautiful middle-aged woman with an outstanding aura. With a cold expression, she was in charge of all the buildings in the academy, including the array formations. In the blink of an eye, 7 of the 9 elders had arrived. By the looks of it, there's a chance that the 9 elders will be gathered. Lu Ping whispered. As expected, it didn't take long before another 2 elders came together. The 3rd elder was in charge of all the immortal mountains, spirit peaks and grotto heavens of the academy. He controlled the essence spirit stones, essence spirit liquid and other cultivation resources of the academy and was in charge of issuing sect missions. The moment the 5th elder appeared, he caused quite a stir. It was as though there was a massive army gathered behind him as he emitted a murderous aura with a rumbling might that was suffocating. The 2nd elder was in charge of law enforcement and his killing intent was sinister and cold. On the other hand, the 5th elder's murderous aura gave people a feeling of desperation. The 9 elders of Heaven and Earth Academy appeared and stood in midair, surrounding the Tao Heart staircase as their gazes landed on Su Zimo. Many cultivators were nervous and excited. It was a rare occasion for the 9 elders to gather. Most of the inner sect disciples present might not have the chance to meet the 9 elders of the academy even after cultivating for hundreds of thousands of years. Right now, everyone was making use of such an opportunity to catch a glimpse of the 9 elders with the help of a rank 1 heaven immortal who had just entered the inner sect. It's unusual for the 9 elders to appear at the same time. Could there be a deeper meaning? Elder Zhong pondered for a moment and seemed to have thought of something. His heart skipped a beat as he whispered, "Could it be, what?" Lu Ping could not help but ask hurriedly out of curiosity. The 9 elders might be interested in taking him in as a disciple. Elder Zhong said sternly. "Ah!" Princess Qi Hong and Lu Ping exclaimed softly. Elder Zhong said with a stern expression, "If he can become a disciple of one of the elders, he will be a legacy disciple of our academy. Su Zimo is trying to ascend to the heavens in a single step." Chapter 2281. Core Disciple. Princess Qi Hong and Lu Ping were both shocked. They had just entered the inner sect and knew almost nothing about the core area of the academy. Elder Zhong explained, "The 9 elders are all immortal king experts. Generally speaking, inner sect disciples will only have the chance to become core disciples of the 9 elders after reaching the true self realm. But now, Su Zimo has reached the top of the Tao Heart ladder and become the first person in the history of Qiankuan Academy, alarming the 9 elders to appear at the same time. It's unknown if the 9 elders want to take him in as a disciple in advance." Lu Ping smiled and said, "I'm right to call him senior brother." Senior brother Su actually had such an opportunity. Princess Chi Hong also sighed. If he can become a core disciple, it's indeed like reaching the heavens in a single step. The three of them did not talk loudly, but because the surroundings were rather quiet, Fang Qingyun and the others not far away could hear them clearly. Wishful thinking. Fang Qingyun raised his brows and said, as everyone knows, there is a prerequisite to becoming a core disciple, and that is to reach the true self realm and become a perfected immortal. I'm just saying. Elder Zhong did not want to argue with Fang Qingyun and replied with a smile. However, Fang Qingyun was unwilling to stop and said, Elder Zhong, you haven't been in the inner sect for long, so you should know some things. Even in the legacy lands, not all legacy disciples have the chance to become a disciple of the 9 great elders. That was indeed the truth. There were hundreds of core disciples in Shenkuan Academy, but less than half of them could become disciples of the 9 elders. Fang Qingyun shook his head slightly and chuckled. Even if Su Zimo has reached the top of the Tao Heart Ladder, his cultivation realm is too low. He's only a first-stage heaven immortal. How can he be qualified to become a disciple of the 9 elders? At that moment, the oldest first elder with white hair and a beard coughed softly and said slowly, Su Zimo has a strong Tao heart and good talent. However, his realm is too low and it's difficult for him to catch your attention. Coincidentally, I'm still lacking a disciple. You're wrong. The third elder hurriedly said, it doesn't matter if his cultivation level is low. He can cultivate. I have enough elemental spirit stones and elemental spirit liquid. If I nurture him with all my strength, he can reach the true self realm in the shortest time possible within 50,000 years. The third elder was in charge of many cultivation resources of Cosmos Academy. He naturally had the confidence to do so. You're abusing your position for personal gain. The second elder said eerily, if you violate the sect rules, I won't give you any face. After pausing for a while, the second elder continued, it is said that this boy is decisive and cold-blooded. I think he is the most suitable person to inherit my mantle. It is not impossible to let him take charge of the punishment of the academy in the future. The first elder raised his walking stick and knocked it a few times. He said with anger, this old man is already in his old age and doesn't have much time left. For this reason, you can't compete with me. Great elder, these are 2 different matters. The sixth elder said with a faint smile, my disciples are all female cultivators and I happen to be lacking a male disciple. I think this Su Zimo is not bad. The sixth elder had a voluptuous figure. Although she was middle-aged, her skin was still smooth and delicate. Her aura was outstanding and she had a unique charm when she smiled faintly. I heard that this boy went on a killing spree at the 10,000-year meeting. The fifth elder suddenly spoke with a voice that sounded like metal clashing. This boy has such a strong killing intent and is most suitable to cultivate under my wing. Don't compete with me. In midair, the 9 elders started arguing, causing the tens of thousands of academy disciples below to be dumbfounded. In the hearts of many academy disciples, the 9 elders were high and mighty, unreachable and mysterious existences in the academy. Unexpectedly, the 9 elders were like ordinary people right now and were arguing endlessly for a single academy disciple. None of them were willing to give in easily. Fang Qingyun's smile froze on his face with an awkward expression. It was only at this moment that he realized that the impact of ascending the Tao Heart Staircase in Cosmos Academy was much greater than he had imagined. Fang Qingyun lowered his head slightly, hiding the gloominess in his eyes. If Su Zimo really entered the tutelage of the 9 elders and became a legacy disciple, then Su Zimo's status in the academy would already be above his. Originally, even if he failed this time, he also had many methods to deal with Su Zimo. But if Su Zimo was a legacy disciple, he would not dare to act rashly. On the Tao Heart Staircase, Su Zimo was currently undergoing the final Tao Heart trial. He naturally could not sense everything that was happening outside. He did not know that the outside world was practically in an uproar because of his actions. The impact of the will contained on the Staircase of Wisdom on Su Zimo's Tao Heart was not as fierce and intense as the Staircase of Slaughter and Staircase of Sword Tao. However, The will of wisdom left behind on the stone steps was all-encompassing, vast, and all-encompassing. Astronomy, calendar, secret arts, astrology, divination, numerology, divination, divination. The will of wisdom on this stone step contained endless information and endless mysteries. It could see through heaven and earth, explore the vast universe, and was impossible to surmise. These things seemed to have transformed into countless strange and unfamiliar runes that contained profound heavenly secrets. They constantly attacked his sea of consciousness and swarmed in. These runes were densely packed, covering heaven and earth without end. Wu Dao's heart burned with raging flames as he constantly refined these strange runes that swarmed in from the will of wisdom. The will on the staircase of wisdom was also unable to shake Wu Dao's heart. The flames of war in Wu Dao's heart burned more and more fiercely as his fighting spirit grew stronger and stronger. But the ninth step did not seem to be just a test of the Dao heart. These countless strange runes were still attacking Su Zimo's mind. Su Zimo was in the endless dark starry sky, surrounded by endless strange runes. He felt like he was about to be drowned and his entire head was about to explode. Although he did not recognize these runes, each rune contained the supreme wisdom of the patriarch. With his current cultivation realm, his sea of consciousness could not withstand such vast and endless runes at all. On the ninth stone step, Su Zimo's body swayed slightly, as if he was about to fall from above. In his sea of consciousness, Qinglian's essence spirit waved the Sanyu Jade Rui, wanting to block the endless strange runes around her. However, even with the power of the Sanyu Jade Rui, it could not shoot down these runes. Right at this moment, the tiny horsetail whisk in the other hand of Qinglian's essence spirit flew out of her palm on its own and flicked it gently in her sea of consciousness. Strangely, after the tiny horsetail whisk flicked a few times in her sea of consciousness, the runes that surged in suddenly quietened down and became orderly. 3,000 strands of whisk, sorting out the heavenly secrets. Under the sorting of the tiny horsetail whisk, the runes gradually left Su Zimo's mind. Strange. Su Zimo could clearly sense that there seemed to be some kind of power on the tiny horsetail whisk that was similar to these strange runes and came from the same source. Stimulated by these strange runes, the tiny horsetail whisk's jade-green handle shone with light, as if some seal had been opened. At the same time, a piece of legacy memory surged into Su Zimo's mind. Chapter 2282. After Qinglian's real body had advanced to the 11th stage, she had obtained this horsetail whisk. However, there were very few inherited memories about this magic treasure. She only knew that this magic treasure was called the Tai horsetail whisk and had no other information. Now, Su Zimo had reached the 9th step. When the Tai horsetail whisk was combing those strange runes, it seemed to have triggered some kind of restriction. A piece of inherited memory poured into his mind. The Yin-Yang charm scripture. In this memory, there was only one secret scripture. It was divided into 2 parts, with only 600 words. However, Su Zimo could not understand the contents of these 2 parts. This was because the contents were written by the strange runes that he had seen before. He did not know the meaning of each rune, nor did he know the use of the Yin-Yang charm scripture and its connection with the Tai horsetail whisk. Su Zimo pondered for a long time but could not figure it out. Although the Yin-Yang charm scripture only had 600 words, to him, it was like a book from heaven. Su Zimo stood on the Taoist heart stairs, surrounded by the wills of the 9 peerless powerhouses. The changes in his sea of consciousness could not be perceived by others. The whole process was short, but in fact, it had been more than 2 hours. Su Zimo stood on the 9th stone step for 2 whole hours. However, the 9 elders did not leave at all. They waited patiently by the side. 8th elder, if you can't wait, you can go back first. The 3rd elder said with a smile, I guess that when he finishes the trial, he won't learn forging from you. It's none of your business. The 8th elder had a hot temper and said loudly, I'll wait here. If this boy becomes my disciple, he will have enough divine weapons. It seems that this boy has successfully passed the step of wisdom that the patriarch condensed. The first elder nodded slightly and stroked his beard with his big hand, looking more and more satisfied. Climbing the Taoist heart stairs and passing the trial of the 9-step Taoist heart stairs were two different concepts, two different levels. Climbing the Taoist heart stairs proved that Su Zimo's Taoist heart was strong enough, and even caused the 9 elders to scramble to take him as their disciple. It was even harder to pass the trial of the 9-step Tao heart staircase. This time round, the 9 elders were even more unwilling to give in. All of them were secretly plotting how they could rope Su Zimo in after the trial ended. At this moment, the 4th elder frowned slightly. His gaze fell on Elder Xian, who was standing beside the Tao heart stairs. He exclaimed softly, "Why is Elder Xian here instead of guarding the secret pavilion? I heard that when Yuchan and Su Zimo climbed the Tao heart staircase, Yuchan was attacked by killing intent on the 3rd stone step. He was the one who saved him." The 9th elder said, "Although the Tao path was destroyed, at least his life was saved." The 5th elder sneered and said, "Without cultivation, even if he survives, he'll be a cripple, no different from an ant." The 2nd elder's face was still gloomy as he coldly said, "Since he has already saved everyone, why is old Xian still here? Don't tell me he also wants to take in a disciple?" The 3rd elder joked. The 7th elder chuckled and said, "What can you learn from him? Learn from him and guard the secret pavilion? Why don't we chase him away?" The 8th elder frowned slightly and said, "He's standing so close to the Tao heart stairs. He's an eyesore. Don't affect Su Zimo's trial." While the elders were discussing Elder Xian, the 1st elder did not speak. He only had a faint smile on his face. When he heard that they wanted to chase Elder Xian away, the 1st elder said slowly, "Forget it. After all, he's an old man of the academy. He's been in the academy longer than the patriarch. Let's give him some face and ignore him." Elder Xian was expressionless as he listened to the elders' discussion. He did not raise his head to look. The Tao heart stairs. Su Zimo's green robes fluttered in the wind as he stood upright. He slowly opened his eyes and looked forward with a calm expression. The staircase of wisdom under his feet no longer affected him. He had passed all 9 steps of the Tao heart stairs, but he did not leave immediately. The Tao heart of his 2 true bodies had been completely stimulated after the trial of the Tao heart stairs. The flames of war were ignited and burned fiercely. Su Zimo's Tao heart had accumulated an unimaginable amount of power that had nowhere to go. Su Zimo looked at the void in front of him. His eyes were like torches. 2 balls of flames seemed to be burning in his eyes. His aura kept rising. It's hard to imagine that someone could pass all 9 steps of the Tao heart stairs. Moreover, he's only a 1st stage heavenly immortal. This Su Zimo is very likely to be the #1 person in the history of the Qianquan Academy. That's right. There was no one like him in the past. It will be very difficult for him to appear again in the future. After the dust settled, there were more discussions in the crowd. Many cultivators were filled with emotions. No one had expected that a 1st-stage heavenly immortal who ascended from the lower realm would set an unprecedented record in the Qianquan Academy. At this moment, many cultivators were secretly ashamed when they recalled their contempt and ridicule for this person at the beginning. Junior brother Su has already passed the Tao heart stairs. Why is he still standing on it? Someone asked. He probably wants to comprehend it for a while longer, another person said. Let's disperse. There's nothing to see. Let's wait a little longer. Whether Su Zimo can become a true disciple or which elder he will become a disciple of has not been decided yet. I'm not going to wait. I don't want to be stimulated again. Just tell me the result later. Many cultivators had suffered a big blow this time and were preparing to go back into seclusion to cultivate. At this moment, the figure standing on the 9th step moved again. It was still a familiar and simple action. He raised his foot and took another step toward the void in front of him. There was nothing there. Su Zimo's action was a little strange. However, when this step landed, the mountain range in the academy shook and countless birds and beasts were startled. The earth shook and the mountains shook. Thousands of beasts roared. The cultivators who were about to leave stopped in their tracks and turned around. Immediately after, the eyes of many cultivators widened as they witnessed an incomparably shocking scene that they would never forget for the rest of their lives. Beneath Su Zimo's feet, a vast will condensed on the 9th step. Streaks of light circulated and condensed, forming another layer of stone steps that was clearer and more obvious. Instantly, the world trembled and a phenomenon descended. Countless lotus flowers floated down from the skies. Golden lotuses bloomed one after another beneath Su Zimo's feet as well. Flowers fell from the skies and golden lotuses surged from the ground. Initially, those were two great divine powers. However, they had descended in the form of a universal phenomenon. Raging flames burned beneath Su Zimo's feet. Raging flames burned the golden lotuses. Suddenly, everyone heard a strange sound in their ears. It seemed to be able to touch everyone's mind. The essence chi, true essence and essence spirits in everyone's bodies trembled uncontrollably. Blow the conch and drum. Old Shen exclaimed. Pissed. The 9 elders' expressions changed at the same time. Legend has it that the sound of blowing the conch and drum could only be produced when the great Tao resonated. It was only mentioned in the most ancient immortal and Buddhist sutras. The 9 elders had cultivated for hundreds of thousands of years, but they had never heard such a sound. Heaven and earth shook and the great Tao resonated. Su Zimo took another step forward and condensed the 10th step. Chapter 2283. This time, it wasn't just the numerous students of the academy that were present here, even the 9 elders were filled with shock. The sound of the Dharma conch and Dharma drum was not an ordinary sound at all. It was a celestial sound, a Sanskrit sound, a sound of nature. Not to mention the inner disciples, core disciples, and immortal kings like the 9 elders, even they felt extremely small under this celestial sound. The disciples of the academy were completely stunned. Shock, confusion, disbelief, everyone's eyes widened, and there was only one thought left in their minds: how is this possible? No one had seen the patriarch condense the 9th step, but now, they actually had the chance to witness the formation of the 10th step with their own eyes. Not only did Su Zimo pass the trial of the Tao Heart Ladder, but he also created the 10th step. Above the 9th step was the 10th step. This was not a simple progression of numbers. This meant that Su Zimo's Tao heart seemed to have broken some kind of limit, and was even above the patriarch of the academy. Was this possible? Su Zimo was only a level 1 heaven immortal. Although the strength of one's Tao heart had nothing to do with one's cultivation realm, how could a level 1 heaven immortal condense a Tao heart to such an extent? Every step of the Tao heart ladder was harder and harder to condense. In order to condense the Tao heart stone steps, one had to first endure the trial of the Tao heart, and this was a huge test for most cultivators. When the patriarch of the academy in this life condensed the 9th step, everyone thought that this was the limit, the end. 9 was the limit, and it was impossible to break this limit. Who could endure the trial of the 9th step of the Tao heart ladder and go one step further on the ladder of wisdom to condense the 10th step? The psychological and visual impact of this scene on everyone present was too great. After passing the trial of the Tao heart ladder, Su Zimo was at most the first person in the history of the Qiankuan Academy, and he attracted the 9 elders to gather and fight to take him in as a disciple. Now, the 10th step of the Tao heart ladder was condensed. This could no longer be simply described as the first person in the history of the academy. This achievement was unprecedented, and it was enough to be recorded in the annals of the academy and leave a name for eternity. Oh my God, what kind of Tao heart did senior brother Su condense to be so powerful? Lu Ping's mouth was agape and his expression was blank. He still hadn't recovered from the scene before him. Elder Zhong gulped. Now that I think about it, true immortal Yuchan's loss wasn't unjust. What sort of existence did he offend? If the news of him condensing the 10th step of the Taoist heart staircase gets out, I'm afraid it will cause a huge commotion in the divine firmament's celestial realm. Princess Chi Hong muttered softly, The impact of this matter is definitely greater than that of the battle at the Millennium Meeting. In fact, Princess Chi Hong had underestimated the significance of the 10th step of the Tao Heart Staircase. If Su Zimo passed the 9th step of the Tao Heart Staircase, he would definitely cause a huge commotion in the divine firmament celestial realm. But now he had reached the 10th level, which was above the Patriarch of the Academy. If this news spread, the entire Nine Clouds immortal region and the heaven world would be shocked. At this moment, a figure suddenly appeared in midair. No one was able to clearly see how that figure appeared. When the crowd looked over, that person was already standing there. He was wearing a green Confucian robe and had a tall and straight figure. Just by standing there with his hands behind his back, he exuded an imposing aura. The 9 elders seemed to have lowered their heads in front of that person. "The Patriarch is here," Elder Zhong exclaimed in surprise. Princess Chi Hong and Lu Ping instinctively looked over. When their gazes landed on the Patriarch's face, it was as though they were frozen and couldn't shift their gazes away. The Patriarch of the Academy looked like a middle-aged man. His sideburns were a little gray, and his face was handsome and flawless. He was much younger than the 9 elders. His forehead was wide and thick, and his forehead was full. It seemed to contain infinite wisdom. The most eye-catching thing was his eyes. They were like the bright stars in the night sky, deep and mysterious. They were also like the gemstones in the deep sea, shining with a strange luster. With one look, one could not help but be immersed in it. It seemed to contain endless magic. That pair of eyes contained deep and melancholy emotions, but also a radiance that was in high spirits. There was a vast starry sky, all living beings in the world, the rumbling mortal world and all living beings. Through these eyes, everyone seemed to see a different world and a different scene. The appearance of the Patriarch of the Academy attracted everyone's attention. "Patriarch." The 9 elders cupped their fists slightly. "Greetings, Patriarch." The many cultivators below bowed one after another as well. On the altar, old Xian finally raised his head and looked at the Patriarch of the Academy, nodding slightly. The commotion this time round is way too great. Even the Patriarch is alarmed. Could the Patriarch be tempted to take in a disciple now that he's here? That can't be. I heard that the Patriarch has extremely high requirements for taking in disciples. Right now, he only has 6 disciples, and I heard that Fairy Mo Qing is one of them. Forming rank 10 is unprecedented. With such a Tao heart, it's not impossible for the Patriarch to take a liking to her. Many cultivators whispered to each other and discussed. "Patriarch, why are you?" the 3rd elder asked tentatively. "To be able to form rank 10 on my wisdom stair, I naturally have to come and see who's capable of doing so." The Patriarch of the Academy's gaze landed on Su Zimo as he praised, "He's only a rank 1 heaven immortal at such a young age. How rare." "Patriarch, don't tell me you're thinking of taking him in as your disciple too?" the 6th elder asked bluntly. "Why not?" The Patriarch of the Academy looked at the 6th elder and smiled as he asked in return. The 6th elder's face blushed slightly as she looked into the eyes of the Patriarch of the Academy. She turned her head and waved her hand as she said softly, "Forget it. Since you want to take him in as your disciple, I'll back out. He's an unpolished gem." The Patriarch of the Academy said gently, "I'll teach him personally." This also meant that the Patriarch of the Academy would take Su Zimo in as his disciple. There was almost no suspense. If he could become the disciple of the Patriarch of the Academy, it would naturally be better than becoming the disciple of the 9 elders. This was because there was probably no one in the Academy who was more capable than the Patriarch of the Academy. The Patriarch of the Academy had very high standards for taking in disciples. Currently, he only had 6 disciples. Among them, the Moonlight Sword Immortal was famous in the Divine Cloud Continent, and the Painting Fairy Mo Qing was famous in the 9 Heavens Immortal Realm. If he could become the disciple of the Patriarch of the Academy, he would be the junior brother of the Moonlight Sword Immortal, the Painting Fairy Mo Qing. He would have the same status as them. What kind of treatment would that be? Since the Patriarch of the Academy has stepped in, I have nothing to say. The second elder announced his withdrawal. The other elders also did not insist. The 9 elders knew that although they were all immortal kings, their abilities were far inferior to the patriarch of the academy. Even if they worked together, they would not be able to do it. I don't agree. At this moment, a voice sounded in the mind of the patriarch of the academy. Apart from him, no one else noticed it. Chapter 2284. The academy patriarch's expression didn't change when he heard this voice. He didn't seem surprised. The academy patriarch's gaze was still fixed on Su Zimo. He didn't lower his head to look at Elder Xian. He asked through his divine sense, "Why don't you agree?" First come first serve if you want to take in a disciple. Elder Xian replied, "I took a fancy to this kid first." "You're too late." "You want him to inherit your mantle?" The academy patriarch asked again. "That's right." Elder Xian said, "This kid's Dao heart is unprecedentedly strong. Only such a Dao heart can shoulder the responsibility of my lineage." The academy patriarch said plainly, "To be fair, with his talent and strong Dao heart, it'll be a waste if he inherits your mantle." "Don't talk about this." Elder Xian was a little displeased. He said, "My lineage has existed since the establishment of Qiankuan Academy. Our responsibilities are important, and it concerns the future of the academy. How is it a waste? Actually, in my opinion, your lineage doesn't have much meaning." The academy patriarch said, "A few 100,000 years ago, I took over the position of the patriarch, and you took over the position of the 10th elder. However, so many years have passed, and the development of the academy has nothing to do with you. To be precise, the position of the 10th elder hasn't been of any use since the establishment of Qiankuan Academy." Elder Xian was silent. He knew that the 10th elder couldn't interfere in the academy's affairs due to his special status. Even his identity was a top secret in the Cosmos Academy. After a moment of silence, Elder Xian said, "No matter what, this is the rule set by the patriarch. You and I are in the light and one is in the dark. How can it be broken so easily?" "That's right. You're in the dark. Besides the Grand Elder, the other 8 elders don't know your true identity." The academy patriarch sighed and asked, "Do you want Su Zimo to inherit your mantle and live in the dark like you? He's still young. It's too cruel to give such a heavy responsibility to him." Elder Xian fell silent once again. He lowered his head and didn't say anything. The patriarch of the academy added, "If he becomes my disciple, I will teach and protect him. With his talent, he will definitely become famous in the 9 heavens immortal realm and live a carefree and happy life. What's wrong with that? I can understand your love for talent. However, for the sake of your bloodline's inheritance, you're placing all the heavy burdens that were originally on your shoulders on him. Isn't that a bit too selfish?" "Hey!" Elder Xian was silent for a long time. Suddenly, he let out a weird laugh and said, "I'm not like you. My lineage is only passed down through a single generation. Now that I've finally met a good one, I definitely won't miss this opportunity. But I've already shown myself here and said that I would take him as my disciple. Don't tell me that I'm going to go back on my word in front of all these disciples." The patriarch of the academy felt helpless and smiled bitterly. "I don't care." Elder Xian rolled his eyes. The patriarch of the academy couldn't help but sigh when he saw that Elder Xian wasn't willing to back down. The melancholy in his eyes seemed to have deepened. "How about this? Both of us will take a step back." A moment later, the patriarch of the academy said, "I've already said that I would take him as my disciple. Of course, I won't go back on my word. I can take him as an in-name disciple first. When he reaches the true self realm and becomes a true immortal, he can choose whether to become my disciple or inherit your legacy. What do you think?" "That's fair." Elder Xian rolled his eyes and said, "This is also respecting his wishes. No matter who he becomes, it's his own choice. Besides, he's only a heaven immortal. His cultivation is too low. If he's promoted to a core disciple, it might not be a good thing for him." After a short pause, Elder Xian continued, "You should take him as an in-name disciple first and let him train in the inner sect. If he enters the core area, he'll be surrounded by true immortals. I'm afraid he won't have an easy time. At this moment, the 10th step under Su Zimo's feet was completed. Su Zimo stood on the 10th step and closed his eyes for a long time. He recalled the tempering of the 9 Tao hearts. The Tao hearts of his 2 true bodies became more perfect and indestructible. After the 10th step was completed, the flames of war in the Tao hearts of his 2 true bodies were extinguished. The 10th step was called the Wu Dao step. Su Zimo left the will of his 2 true bodies on it. Anyone who stepped onto the 10th step would have to bear the impact of Wu Dao's will. It was an unimaginably vast power that burned like fire and could incinerate everything. Those who didn't have a strong Tao heart would even be incinerated by the flames on the 10th step. After a long time, Su Zimo slowly opened his eyes. The surroundings were eerily quiet. Sensing something, Su Zimo raised his head instinctively and saw 9 old men surrounding the Tao heart staircase, all of them looking at him. Their gazes were either cold, benevolent, friendly, or appreciative. Su Zimo's gaze swept past the 9 elders and landed on another man in scholarly robes. Their gazes met gently in midair. Su Zimo's mind buzzed and he instantly recalled the countless strange runes that appeared on the stairway of wisdom. In the eyes of the scholarly robed man, Su Zimo seemed to be able to see the endless starry sky, the dark and boundless deep sea, as well as countless astronomical almanacs and secret skills of star divination. It was as though all the mysteries of heaven and earth could not escape those eyes. "You're good." The scholarly robed man spoke with a deep and magnetic voice. Su Zimo's mind jolted and he snapped to his senses. He exchanged glances with the scholarly robed man and realized that the person before him was the person who condensed the 9th step of the Tao Heart Step, the Patriarch of Heaven and Earth Academy. "Greetings, Patriarch." Su Zimo bowed. Even he did not realize that the condensation of the 10th step of the Tao Heart Step had alarmed the Patriarch of the Academy. "You might have to change your way of addressing me next." The Patriarch of the Academy smiled gently. Su Zimo was slightly stunned. Previously, he was completely immersed in the condensation of the 10th step and did not know what was happening outside. The Patriarch of the Academy surveyed his surroundings and said, "When you ascended the 9th step of the Tao Heart Step, the 9 elders of the Academy appeared at the same time and wanted to take you in as their disciple. Later on, even I was tempted when you condensed the 10th step." Chapter 2285. When the elders heard this, they were all puzzled. According to the original intention of the Academy Patriarch, he should have taken Su Zimo in as a personal disciple directly. Why did he become an in-name disciple at the last minute? The elders naturally did not know what happened during this period that caused the Academy Patriarch to change his mind. The Grand Elder's expression changed as he looked at old Xian on the altar thoughtfully. "Su Zimo." The Academy Patriarch had a gentle expression as he looked at Su Zimo with a smile. "Are you willing to be my in-name disciple temporarily?" "I'm willing." Su Zimo bowed and replied in a deep voice. Although he was only an in-name disciple, there were no disadvantages for him to be able to become the disciple of the Academy Patriarch, and he had no reason to refuse. Many cultivators present revealed deep envy in their eyes. Even if he was just an in-name disciple, his status far surpassed that of an inner sect disciple. This was the in-name disciple of the Academy Patriarch. As long as nothing unexpected happened, he would definitely become the Patriarch's personal disciple in the future. At that moment, Tang Peng had already woken up and was unable to accept the scene before him. He did not expect that he had merely fallen from the Tao Heart stairs and fainted. By the time he woke up, the Heaven Immortal who had just entered the inner sect had already soared into the sky and his status was even above his. The flow of fate seemed mysterious and cruel at this moment. "Senior Brother Fong, how could this be?" Tang Peng was still in disbelief as he clenched his fists and gritted his teeth. "How did this person jump above us?" Don't panic." Fong Qingyun's expression was calm as he sent a voice transmission. "This Su Zimo is only an in-name disciple and not a true personal disciple. We still have a chance." Right at that moment, the Academy Patriarch retracted his smile and looked around. Every disciple of the Academy had a feeling that the Patriarch was looking at them. Everyone of Qiankuan Academy, listen up. The Patriarch of the Academy said slowly, what happened today is about the Taoist heart ladder and Su Zimo's nominal disciple. Without my permission, no one is allowed to spread it out. Those who intentionally leak the information will be punished with the same crime as those who harm their fellow disciples. Kill without mercy. Ever since the Patriarch of the Academy showed up, he had always been gentle and polite. He even smiled from time to time, giving people a feeling of closeness. But now, after the Patriarch of the Academy said those words, his body exuded a kind of pressure and killing intent that belonged to a superior. Not to mention the disciples present, even the 9 elders' expressions turned cold. Fang Qingyun's expression froze, and his face turned ugly. Initially, he was still thinking about how he could turn the tables and scheme against Su Zimo. But now, the words of the Patriarch of the Academy caused his heart to tremble, and all the thoughts from before vanished instantly. Fang Qing even had an illusion that the Patriarch of the Academy had seen through his thoughts and that his words were a warning to him. Patriarch, what is the meaning of this? Lu Ping couldn't help but ask. If news of what happened today were to spread, it would definitely cause a huge commotion in the divine firmament immortal domain. Elder Zhong explained, at that time, countless gazes and the attention of countless people will converge on Su Zimo. This is equivalent to pushing Su Zimo to the cusp of the storm. In that position, who knows how much danger and hostility he will have to endure? Now, the Patriarch of the Academy forbids the people of the Academy from spreading this matter. It is actually a form of protection for Su Zimo. Lu Ping nodded while seeming to understand. Princess Qi Hong frowned and asked, but the matter today caused such a huge commotion, and so many people of the Universe Academy witnessed it with their own eyes. Even if someone intentionally leaked it, how would we know who did it? This is the strength of the Patriarch. Elder Zhong smiled and said, he has supreme wisdom and can see through the secrets of the heavens. He is omniscient. Who has the confidence to hide from the Patriarch's senses and risk being killed to leak this matter? Moreover, even if 1 or 2 people leaked it, others would definitely not believe it. A stage 1 heaven immortal passed the 9-step Tao heart staircase trial and even created the 10th step. He was accepted as an in-name disciple by the Patriarch of the Academy. If we did not witness it with our own eyes, who would believe it? Princess Qi Hong and Lu Ping hurriedly nodded and felt deeply moved. Even though they had witnessed it with their own eyes, an extremely unreal feeling arose in their hearts and did not dissipate for a long time. Everyone, you may leave. Su Zimo, stay behind. The Patriarch of the Academy said plainly. The 9 elders retreated at the first moment. Their figures all disappeared into the void. Their methods were astonishing. The other cultivators also left quickly. Not long after, only the Patriarch of the Academy, Elder Xian, and Su Zimo were left on the altar. You can understand my intentions, right? The Patriarch of the Academy looked at Su Zimo and asked gently. Su Zimo hesitated for a moment and nodded. The tallest tree in the forest will be destroyed by the wind. The Patriarch of the Academy said, your current cultivation realm is too low. It won't do you any good if this matter is spread. When your cultivation realm is enough to withstand all of this, I will naturally announce this matter to the public. Su Zimo said, I understand. The Patriarch of the Academy nodded slightly and continued, since you are an in-name disciple, you should first train in the inner sect. Of course, if you have any doubts about your cultivation, you can look for me anytime. You can look for me too. Elder Xian suddenly interrupted from the side. Su Zimo was slightly stunned. Elder Xian was only an old man guarding the secret pavilion. This action seemed to be a little overboard and inappropriate. However, Su Zimo saw that the Patriarch of the Academy's expression was normal and did not have any intention of reprimanding him. He could not help but mutter in his heart. Su Zimo did have one doubt about his cultivation. It was the strange runes of more than 600 words in the Yin-Yang Talisman scripture. These runes were very similar to the runes on the steps of wisdom on the Tao heart ladder. Su Zimo was almost certain that the patriarch of the academy definitely recognized these strange runes and could solve his doubts. However, the yin-yang talisman scripture originated from the Tai horsetail whisk, and the Tai horsetail whisk originated from the real body of Qinglian. Su Zimo was worried that the yin-yang talisman scripture would contain some information about the creation of Qinglian and expose the existence of the real body of Qinglian. Although he was already a disciple of the patriarch of the academy, Su Zimo was still in the upper world. Out of caution, he did not take this risk. Hey! Old Xian glanced sideways at the patriarch of the academy and raised his brows. An in-name disciple is still a disciple. No matter what, you have to give him a gift. The patriarch of the academy pondered for a moment and smiled. Suddenly, a small jade token appeared in his hand. The token was engraved with a few exquisite patterns. When Old Xian saw the token, he nodded in a rare manner and urged Su Zimo, "This is not bad. Hurry and accept it. It can save your life at a critical moment." This is a teleportation jade token. The patriarch of the academy said, "As long as you're in the heaven realm, no matter where you are, as long as you encounter danger that you can't resist, crush this token and you will be able to return to Qiankuan Academy at any time." This teleportation jade token was equivalent to the major transference talisman of Tianhuang mainland. However, in the upper world, only immortal kings whose cultivation had reached the Grotto Heaven realm had the ability to travel freely in the void. In that case, this teleportation jade token was indeed a life-saving jade token. It was extremely difficult to refine such a teleportation jade token. Generally speaking, only the most prized and favored successor disciples of immortal kings would be able to obtain one. Book Guest Residence Reading Website. Chapter 2286. Su Zimo took the teleportation jade badge and kept it in his pocket. He was secretly delighted. This item was the real life-saving measure. Back in the Tianhuang continent, Xianbei's master had given him a teleportation talisman, which was similar to this teleportation jade badge. It allowed him to escape from the pursuit of a half-martial ancestor. Elder Xian said, "Su Zimo, if you want to increase your cultivation in the heavenly origin realm, seclusion is not enough. When you are in the earth origin realm, as long as you are talented enough and spend most of your time in seclusion, you can reach the 8th or 9th rank of the earth immortal realm. However, in the heavenly origin realm, you need to have enough experience. It's best if you have great opportunities and fortuitous encounters." "Thank you for your advice." Su Zimo bowed slightly. On the path of cultivation, opportunities and fortuitous encounters were extremely important to a cultivator. It was a part of one's luck. Yun Ting's cultivation speed was fast not only because he specialized in the way of the sword, but also because he had obtained a few great opportunities. Those opportunities and fortuitous encounters would make even heaven immortals and true immortals jealous. "Of course, I've heard that you have offended many people in the Divine Cloud continent. Be careful when you go out." Elder Xian reminded him again. Su Zimo immediately acknowledged. Elder Xian was not his master, but for some reason his attitude toward him was somewhat unusual. The patriarch of the college did not seem to be surprised by this. His expression was calm. "I'll take my leave first." Elder Xian waved his hand and took a step forward, disappearing into the void. Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat. Only a celestial king realm expert could do this. He did not expect the old man guarding the Earth Rank secret pavilion to be a celestial king realm expert, who seemed to have a special status in the college. "You have just reached the heavenly origin realm. You should cultivate in seclusion for a while to stabilize your cultivation and strengthen your foundation." The patriarch of the college said, "Many things have happened today. I won't disturb you any longer." After saying this, the patriarch of the college turned around and was about to leave. Su Zimo opened his mouth slightly, but hesitated. "What's the matter?" The patriarch of the college noticed Su Zimo's strange behavior and asked with a gentle expression. "Sect leader, when we were on the way back to the academy from the Flaming Sun Immortal Kingdom, we were intercepted by an expert." "Who is he?" asked the patriarch of the gods, who was the celestial king realm expert. He could tell that the voice of the sect leader of the academy belonged to the person who had saved them. The patriarch of the academy did not answer. After a while, the clan master of the academy shook his head and said, "I can't tell you his identity for the time being. But don't worry, he won't attack you in the future." Su Zimo asked. The clan master of the academy nodded and said, "The gap between the two of you is too big. Revealing his identity now won't do you any good. When your cultivation is strong enough, I can tell you his identity." Su Zimo was silent. He did not ask further. Take it as if nothing happened. Don't think too much about it. The most important thing for you is to focus on your cultivation and raise your cultivation as soon as possible. The patriarch of the academy reminded him again before turning to leave. Su Zimo took a deep breath. The patriarch of the academy was right. Right now, the most important thing for him was to raise his cultivation realm. Su Zimo prepared to go into seclusion again. He had gained a lot from the 10,000-year meeting this time. The weak Nirvana Sutra was complete. If he continued to comprehend it, his essence spirit would definitely be improved. The hell-suppressing cauldron was also completely repaired. He had not cultivated the inheritance secret skill on the fourth cauldron wall. There was also the Tai Horsetail Whisk and the Yin Yang Talisman Sutra. There were too many things to comprehend in seclusion this time. At that thought, Su Zimo no longer hesitated. He turned and left the altar. He sped towards his cave abode and entered seclusion. Although he was in seclusion, the impact of this matter in Chenkuan Academy was still ongoing. For a long time in the future, he would be the center of discussion among the disciples of the academy. After this matter, the number of disciples of the academy who climbed the Tao Heart Staircase increased significantly. However, to everyone, the Tao Heart Staircase was still the Tao Heart Staircase and no one else had done anything shocking. Most of the disciples of the academy were still unable to surpass the third step. What everyone discussed the most was what kind of Tao heart and will Su Zimo left behind on the 10th step. However, no one could ascend it and naturally did not know what was going on up there. A year later, the Tao Heart Staircase gradually returned to being deserted and no one came for a few days. This night, there was no one near the Tao Heart Staircase. All of a sudden, a figure in scholarly robes appeared above the Tao Heart Staircase without warning. After the figure appeared, he waved his sleeves gently and formed an invisible barrier around the Tao Heart Staircase, isolating it from the outside world. The scholarly robed man looked at the Tao Heart Staircase with a strange luster in his deep eyes. A moment later, the scholarly robed man stepped onto the first step of the Tao Heart Staircase. In just a few breaths, the scholarly robed man ascended to the second step. After a few more breaths, the scholarly robed man ascended to the third step. The Tao Heart trial on the Tao Heart Staircase seemed to have little impact on the scholarly robed man. The scholarly robed man walked up the stairs and only paused slightly at each step. It did not cause much of a disturbance to him at all. In the blink of an eye, the scholarly robed man had already ascended to the 8th step. At this moment, another disciple of the academy passed by and glanced over with a calm expression. The scholarly robed man stood on the 8th step of the Tao Heart Staircase, but in the eyes of this cultivator, there was still no one on the Tao Heart Staircase. This was a method similar to a camouflage but extremely brilliant. Even if an immortal king descended, he might not be able to see through it. If this disciple of the academy could see the scholarly robed man on the Tao Heart Staircase, he would definitely be shocked. That was because the scholarly robed man climbing the Tao Heart Staircase was the patriarch of the academy. This disciple of the academy passed by and left quickly without stopping. The patriarch of the academy looked calm as he took another step and ascended to the 9th step. The 9th step was the step of wisdom that he had condensed. This level of willpower of the Tao heart naturally had no effect on him. The patriarch of the academy raised his head slightly and looked at the stone steps above the 9th step. He smiled slightly and murmured softly, "I'm a little curious. What would a Tao heart that can surpass mine be like?" As he spoke, the patriarch of the academy lifted the hem of his scholarly robe and stepped onto the 10th step. The moment his foot stepped onto the 10th step, An unimaginably vast willpower descended from the sky and surged over like a volcano erupting and a raging sea surging into the sky. The patriarch of the academy had never felt such a powerful willpower of the Tao heart. Great fearlessness, great courage, great boldness, and great wisdom. Even if there were millions of people, I would still go forward. The sky could not cover it and the earth could not bury it. This Tao heart was brighter than the stars in the heavens, shining with boundless light and raging flames. Even his Tao heart was unable to resist the will. It began to burn. The patriarch of the academy's expression changed drastically. His body shook and he fell from the Tao heart staircase. He was still in midair, but he stabilized his body and slowly landed on the ground. He had failed. The patriarch of the academy had a complicated expression. Even he could not touch the 10th step of the Tao heart staircase. Scholars Residence Reading Website. Chapter 2287. Ha! At this moment, an ear-piercing laughter came from behind the academy patriarch. The academy patriarch didn't turn around, but he wasn't surprised. There were less than 10 people in the academy who could see through his trick, and this person behind him was one of them. Elder Xian stood not far away and crossed his arms. He was gloating and mocking. I didn't expect you to have such a day, hee. What a coincidence. The sect master of the academy turned around and looked at Elder Xian, who was not far away, as he asked with a smile. Heh, this isn't a coincidence. Elder Xian twisted his lips and said, I've been waiting for you for a year. Others don't know you, but I do. With your temper, you wouldn't be able to tolerate someone who could form the 10th step on your steps of wisdom. But I didn't expect you to be able to tolerate it for a year before sneaking over. If you didn't come, I would have left. The academy patriarch didn't show any embarrassment after being seen through. He only shook his head and laughed. You're really free. Elder Xian laughed again and said, Not only did you sneak over, but you also set up a trick to prevent others from finding out. You're obviously not confident. You know you can't pass the 10th step. Elder Xian and the academy patriarch had known each other for many years. Elder Xian was extremely intelligent and meticulous. He had never seen the academy patriarch suffer. Now that the academy patriarch was embarrassed, Elder Xian was very excited. Let's not talk about me. Do you want to try? The academy patriarch smiled and asked. I'm not going to try. Elder Xian rolled his eyes and twisted his lips. What if I can't even pass your steps of wisdom? Won't it be embarrassing? You want to catch me red-handed? No way. The academy patriarch smiled. But come to think of it, Elder Xian suddenly asked seriously, what's the Tao heart's will on the 10th step? I'm not sure. The patriarch of the academy shook his head and said, this kind of willpower is extremely brave and powerful. It has the sharpness of sword Tao, unyielding resistance, fearlessness, and freedom. I've seen millions of Tao hearts, but I've never seen a Tao heart like this. Who cares? Elder Xian waved his hand and said, anyway, he's a good seedling. When he becomes a true immortal, we'll see who can take him in. No problem. The patriarch of the academy nodded and smiled. He flicked his sleeves and was about to leave. What? You're not going to try again after failing once? Elder Xian raised his eyebrows and instigated. If I try again and fail, won't I be mocked by you again? The voice of the patriarch of the academy was heard, but his figure had already disappeared. At the same time, the camouflage around the Tao heart stairs disappeared without a trace. A gentle breeze blew past, but there was no one beside the Taoist heart stairs. Elder Xian had also left at some point. Peace was restored here. In a cave abode in the inner sect, a level 9 heavenly immortal was done with his teasing. He slowly opened his eyes and floated down from the futon. It was the inner sect disciple of the academy, Yang Ruoxu. Not far away, there was a young boy standing there. Young master, your seclusion this time was so short? The boy quickly brewed a pot of tea and served it to Yang Ruoxu. My cultivation has hit a bottleneck. It's hard to improve if I just cultivate in seclusion. Yang Ruoxu shook his head slightly and took the teacup. He took a deep sniff and drank the hot tea in one gulp. He had been a level 9 heavenly immortal for some time. But to break through the barrier between heavenly immortal and true immortal was as difficult as ascending to the heavens. The gap between heavenly immortal and true immortal was like a huge chasm. Even if the mystic Ian, earth Ian, and sky Ian were added together, they could not compare. He had a feeling that the one who wanted to deal with him was not Fang Qingyun and the others, but the personal disciple of the patriarch of the academy, the Moonlight Sword Immortal. The origin of this hostility was because of the immortal sect selection more than 1,000 years ago. That time, he was spared because of the appearance of the painting immortal Mo Qing. A year ago, there was another change in the outer sect of the academy. That time, for some reason, when he was in danger, the painting immortal Mo Qing actually appeared again and saved him. Was this just a coincidence? End of chapter. Chapter 2288. Divine Clouds Mainland, Huiyin Mountain. Countless towering ancient trees covered the sky and were lush and verdant. At the peak of the mountain, a spacious pavilion was built by someone. Standing there, one could enjoy the magnificent scenery of the Huiyin mountain range. This day, a gigantic crane flew over from the west. A gloomy-looking young man sat on the back of the crane. He was a level 9 heavenly immortal and his facial features were 70% similar to the deceased inner sect disciple of Qiankuan Academy, Pang Yu. This was the other elite of the Pang family, Pang Yu's brother, Pang Yi. The two brothers were extremely outstanding among the younger generation of the Pang family and were heavily groomed by the family. Pang Yu joined Qiankuan Academy while Pang Yi joined Imperial Wind Temple. In terms of combat strength, Pang Yi was above Pang Yu. Pang Yi leaped down from the crane's back. When he saw that the pavilion was empty, he frowned instinctively and found a stone chair to sit down and rest. Before long, more than 10 figures sped over from the east. They were clad in armor and shone with a cold light. There were sabers at their waists and they were all top-tier heavenly immortals. Executioners? Pang Yi opened his eyes and immediately recognized the origins of these people. The symbol of the executioners was too obvious. In the middle of the executioners was a man in brocade robes. There was a hint of evil in his eyes. Pang Yi stood up slowly and cupped his fists. So it's Duke Yuanzhua. Nice to meet you. After all, Duke Yuanzhua used to be the Duke of the Great Jin Immortal Nation and was famous. Pang Yi had seen him from afar before. You are. When Duke Yuanzhua saw Pang Yi, he was slightly stunned. I'm Pang Yi from the Pang family. I'm currently an inner sect disciple of Imperial Wind Temple. Pang Yi reported his identity. Duke Yuanzhua raised his brows slightly and thought for a moment. Soon, he understood and asked, You were invited by fellow Taoist Qin Yun as well? Pang Yi nodded and did not hide anything. It's just that fellow Taoist Qin Yun isn't here yet. Just wait for a while. Duke Yuanzhua sat on a stone chair as well. Before long, a figure appeared from the south. In a few breaths' time, he arrived and descended. Fellow Taoist Gue from Flying Immortal Sect. Pang Yi stood up and cupped his fists in greeting. Within the inner court of the Flying Immortal School, heavenly immortals at returnants were ranked in the top 5 in terms of combat power. Duke Yuanzhua didn't stand up. He only sat on the stone chair and cupped his fists. He smiled and said, If I'm not wrong, Taoist Gue Yuan was also invited by Taoist Qin Yun. Celestial Immortal High Point was a man of few words. At this moment, from the horizon not far away, a flood dragon carriage with pearls and jewels slowly drove over. The coachman driving the carriage had white hair from too much washing. He looked lethargic and expressionless. However, when everyone exchanged glances with the coachman, they all felt a chill in their hearts and a chill run down their spines. More than 10 executioner guards quickly surrounded Commandery Prince Yuanzhua, looking nervous. The carriage stopped in midair. The curtains of the carriage opened, and a young man with a graceful bearing and noble aura walked out. This time, even Duke Yuanzhua stood up. Greetings to Tunhong Commandery Prince. Duke Yuanzhua, Pang Yi, and heavenly immortals at returnants stood up and cupped their fists. Duke Yuanzhua had already lost his power in the Great Jin Immortal Nation. However, Xie Tianhong of the Flaming Sun Immortal Nation still ruled over a territory and had an extremely high status. So many people are here? Xie Tianhong was a little surprised. Everyone, sorry to keep you waiting. At this moment, a voice sounded. When the last word was said, Fang Qingyun had already landed on the peak of Mount Huiyin with Tang Peng behind him. Daoist Qingyun, what's going on? Xie Tianhong asked with a frown. Everyone, please take a seat. Fang Qingyun wasn't in a hurry to explain. After everyone was seated, he said in a deep voice, I gathered all of you here today because in the past year, a few of you have sent me messages asking about Su Zimo. Of course, I'm aware of your intentions. Duke Yuanzhua, Xie Tianhong, and the other three exchanged glances with a tacit understanding. Everyone more or less knew about the feud between the few of them and Su Zimo. Duke Yuanzhua laughed. I didn't expect that apart from me, there would be so many experts who want to kill him. I don't have any feud with him. I was just entrusted by senior sister Meng Yao to take his life. Heavenly Immortal Returnance said calmly. Pang Yi said coldly, he killed my brother in the clan. I want him to pay with his blood. Xie Tianhong didn't explain. The reason he wanted to deal with Su Zimo was to curry favor with Zither Immortal Meng Yao. After listening to everyone, Fang Qingyun said slowly, Fellow Taoists, forgive me for being blunt. It's not easy to deal with Su Zimo now. He has just become a heavenly immortal. Any one of us can easily kill him. What's so difficult about that? Duke Yuan's was sneered. We just have to find an opportunity to wait for him to leave Qiankuan Academy. Fang Qingyun was silent. The patriarch of the academy had issued a gag order. He naturally didn't dare to tell outsiders what happened in the inner sect of the academy. Pang Yi saw that Fang Qingyun was silent and thought that he was in a difficult position because of their friendship. He said, Fellow Taoist Qingyun, if Su Zimo leaves Qiankuan Academy, you just have to send the news to us. You don't have to do anything. Fang Qingyun shook his head. Even if he leaves Qiankuan Academy, it's still not easy to kill him on Divine Cloud Continent. Su Zimo had been accepted as an in-name disciple by the patriarch of the academy. On Divine Cloud Continent, if Duke Yuanzhua and the others mobilized a large number of experts to kill Su Zimo, it was very likely that they would attract the attention of the patriarch of the academy. Brother Qingyun, what do you mean? Duke Yuan's heart skipped a beat. He heard some hidden meaning. Fang Qingyun didn't explain and said, in short, I've gathered everyone here today because I want to tell everyone that you must not act rashly and alert the enemy. It's not impossible to deal with Su Zimo, but you need to be patient and wait for an opportunity. Everyone, don't worry. If there is any good opportunity, I will tell you immediately. At that time, please use all the strength you can, don't underestimate the enemy and kill him. Xie Tianhong said, that's enough. There's no hurry to kill him. However, there are too many monks and too little meat. When the time comes, let's see which of us can snatch his head. Duke Yuanzhua narrowed his eyes.